Hi, everybody. Welcome. This class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, and today I'm doing Level 1, Lesson 3, and this is called The Shape of Time, and it relates to Lesson 1 and Lesson 2. That is also really about this particular shape that is at the foundation of everything that I share with you. So before I get going on notes for today, I want to rewind and go back to some of the stuff from lesson 1 and 2, because I didn't get to this particular image where I show you the proportions. Sorry if I'm distracted while I touch technology. Okay, good. So I'm going to move this over here and press this down. There we go. So this is important stuff to internalize. It is basically like learning the basic scale, so like playing the piano or playing a saxophone. Learning the basic notes that are the foundation for everything that you're going to build going forward. So why am I obsessed with the rainbow? Why do I do this all the time? This is the foundation of the music of life or the symphony of the cosmos. Mastering this is time well spent. It's a pattern that you can apply to the very smallest and the very greatest. Also, please know that this is not easily exchanged for the measurements of optical light waves. So as we begin to talk about red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and the abbreviation Roy G. Biv, what we're talking about are cosmic fabric of time, space, and consciousness calibrations, not the actual size of the nanometers of optical light. So the optical light that you see with your physical eyes has a much smaller, I want to call it octave, like a much smaller range from what you perceive as red all the way up to what you perceive as violet is, let's say, a very skinny slice of the frequency pie. And it is not synonymous with, or as I said, a one-to-one exchange for this type of light that I'm showing you on your screen right now, which is esoteric light. Or I don't have better words for it, like I'm using the word esoteric, but let us say abstract or light that is beyond merely the five senses. This is light in terms of intelligence and higher presence. Higher is a difficult word for me to define in this class, but let us say more refined presence and beyond the ego and beyond the rational intellect, which is based in the five senses. Okay, so, but you're with me all the way. I'm just trying to find the best descriptive terms I can find. Because one student asked, was it one year, so I have to always say this, is this proportion that I'm teaching to you right now a direct analog to the light waves that we see in a physical rainbow in the sky? And it is not. When you see a physical rainbow in the sky, of course, you see an arc or a portion of an arc, but the size and calibration of the inner rings of that arc do not conform to what I am teaching you right now. So this is truthfulness at the level of your physicality presence, your connection to time, and larger time structures. All right. All that being said, let's begin with what these layers represent. And also, I didn't make this up unless the I in that sentence is myself as God, and I'm still on the journey, as all of you are. So I will say this was invented and created and innovated by something that far predates me as Aurora, even Aurora, the presence in the stars or in ancient concurrent Atlantis, and definitely here right now. Let's say it is a pre-existing language or a pre-existing way of communicating, and I have learned it and mastered it, and then I'm happy to speak within that language, and that flying rainbow lasagna is my extra self-expression within this type of language. So I didn't invent this, and it's not random or arbitrary, and it is universal. Those are the main takeaways there. Red is the color of the physical. And when I say that, I'm talking not only about your physical body and your cellular structure, but everything that represents the material world, matter, like all matter everywhere. And orange is the emotional realm, but that is the mammalian emotional realm. So not your abstract emotions, the emotions that are associated with what it is to be in your biological container. So when I talk about that level of being, Almost everybody who's in a human body has felt these feelings. These are feelings of anger or rage or rejection. Like you have these animal feelings because some things you shouldn't be around and they inflame you. And you're like, anger is like a pushing away. And this all happens at the level of orange. Orange puts you into motion. It is emotional energy. But of course, it's an abstraction. It's something that you can't weigh on a scale. Can't ask how many kilograms worth of anger or rejection you contain inside of yourself. And that's why science, has difficulty measuring this, difficulty acknowledging it, even though all of the people who are scientists in your world have felt these feelings at some point. And of course, the balance from anger or rejection or hatred or something like that, disgust, is affection. That's when you want to snuggle. You want to kiss and hug and express mammalian love. And, it's beyond, it can be romantic, sexual, or reproductive, but it can also be like hugging a dog or a cat or whatever, a baby chicken, the way that you express your affection for other creatures. And that is a very mammalian thing. Also, the tendency to build community. These emotional networks happen in a community, in a context. They don't exist in a contextless void. Like you're like a musician and you have to connect your emotions to other organisms, to other people, to feel what you feel. And then I also describe this state of being as a necessary evolution beyond the red chakra, which is just being alive and being responsible for yourself, because at any point, any one of us will come to a difficulty in life and be like, this is a rock or an obstacle that is too big for me to lift on my own. And organisms that are focused only on self-desire and self-centeredness and individuality cannot bypass those moments. But those of us that are mammalian and are focused in community are like, wait, I know what to do. I will ask someone for help. And so all of these emotions that happen at the level of orange, it's emotional energy. It puts you into motion, like it gives you motivation, but it's also about community building. It's not random or arbitrary. The things that you don't enjoy in other people, the characteristics that you reject, like those are not good characteristics. They take away from the community. They make it harder to move obstacles and get things done. And the things that you are attracted by, the things that you feel you want to give affection for, are characteristics that help you to build your community. So this is an important part of how you navigate groups of people. And I'm going to go through the calibrations, but first I want to talk about what each of these layers engenders. The yellow layer is up from your mammalian emotions. And your mammalian emotions, we say that it's centered in the pelvis or in your reproductive organs, but please know it is really, all of these things are all throughout your whole entire body. You have a lot of hormonal structures in your pelvis that are part of your emotions. Also, your guts, where you digest your food, and your neurotransmitters that are in the lining of your stomach. But those neurotransmitters really profuse throughout your whole entire body, and you really feel things that are on the emotional level through your whole body. And same thing with your rational intellect. So this is the level of yellow. We say that we associate it with the solar plexus, or the area above your navel, but like below your chest, and kind of like not yet at the level of the heart. Your intellect is described as being in your brain, on the cerebrum, the bumpy, convoluted surface area. And humans certainly know that, like, if you cut that part out of people, their intellect goes away. But also, please know that your intellect is part of the communication between your cell membranes and other forms of, let's say, cognitive analysis. Brain thinking doesn't just happen here. It really does happen throughout the whole computational edifice of your biological cellular body, but it is mostly talked about in affiliation with the brain. And it's also funny because, like, humans have a particular mind in this world that is very convoluted, diluted, distorted, non-natural mind. And that's a lot of what I'm going to talk about in my notes from today I sent out for everyone. Your mind is unnatural. We're going to get into that with mastering the mind. That's a level 1 class, lesson 5. And then also when I talk about the extensive quote from Carlos Castaneda, but it's the character named Don Juan who is speaking in his book, and he's talking about the predator's mind, the ancient implant, the thing that took humans from their natal form, which is that of the expansive magician, can do so much that is supernatural, and diluted or suppressed or amputated that person into the current form of human that you see, which is banal and mediocre and mundane, or as we would describe it, stuck in the 5 senses. That bad stuff happened here at the level of the yellow, the level of the rational intellect, which is an implant, not a naturally occurring, I want to say, substance, to a behavior in your body. And we're going to talk today a lot about thought as behavior, because your thought behavior is what determines really where you are in your little time diagram and what your DNA is doing. So your thoughts aren't just merely a linear thought, something like the cat jumps or whatever, the cow eats grass. Your because that's like a very linear implant, and that's also how your implanted intellect, linear mind, I keep using that word, and also your articulation hardware in your brain, all of that is at the level of yellow and kind of goes in a line. But your of course I want to go into your true mind already, but we have to go through a few layers first. Your rational mind is the set of behaviors, just like being a musician is a set of behaviors. So when you're a musician, like, have a flavor or a flair to the way that you put notes together. It's not as dead and stupid as being like C sharp, E, F sharp. That's music. There's so much about how you press a note or how you play it or the energy that you put into it. And your neurons are the same way. It is reductionist and facile and very distressing to me when I look at human scientists right now who are attempting to come up with some type of neural network that is artificial, that goes in place of your natural synapses or alongside a parallel hardware in your brain. They're doing all sorts of this bad stuff that I don't agree with. And what I don't agree with is that it is monkeys and silly people who are not well educated about what neuron behavior actually is. They look at brain-mind mapping as similar to linear because your words are linear. The cat jumps. So like, oh, neuron A to neuron B to neuron C. And that's a thought. And I'm like, no, I want to be like, no, that's not how a thought happens. But that in the reductionist mind is how a thought happens. And then you can also see how you would lose so much if you don't look at the real shape of what a thought is shaped like in the mind, and you just think that it is a particular tracing, like on a CAT scan or an MRI, and you're not able to see the other layers or levels of the thought. So then a person is not perceiving accurately, not looking at everything that's there, losing a huge amount of information, and very, very dangerously, perilously close to drawing the wrong conclusions by having only access to partial information. So I'm going to hydrate, but I have so much criticism of like the mind that defines the mind. The yellow layer of the mind is what humans define as mind. Not every animal has this. It's not a good thing to have. I'm sorry, I'm so flippant about this. But like dogs and cats don't have a yellow layer the way that we do. They do have a yellow layer, which is a rational intellect, their own ego, their own sense of self, their own identity. But they don't have an identity the way that humans have one. And going back to that book from Carlos Castaneda, a lot of the back and forth and repartee with him as a student in the fictional world talking to his teacher was about losing his self-importance or loosening his ego. So cats and dogs totally have an ego, like they remember themselves, they have friends around town, they feel, proud if they do the right thing and ashamed or embarrassed if they do the wrong thing. Like they have all of that. but they don't have the type of baggage and difficulties that humans have. And really, the cooties and the distortions of ego go hand in hand. And a lot of it has to do with cognitive dissonance or friction that happens at the level of the intellect and literal genetic damage that makes it so that signals don't flow through that area as easily as they should. I'm going to be very flippant. It's a garbage heap. It's a trashola place. Yep, it's a problem layer. The yellow intellect vastly, vastly needs to be cleaned up. And so that's what a lot of the lesson 3 stuff I'm going to tell you about is about that today. But let's move into more positive territory. Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, the name of this class. And the green layer is when you start to get to levels of real liberation and freedom. It's the layer of unconditional love, which is another emotional state, but it's wildly different than the animalistic state. It's what you would call from the human level, your more angelic emotions, because it is not rooted in sexuality, sensuality, or hedonism. It comes from a type of innocence. Really, you can probably remember it before you were sexually developed and you were, a tiny child and you were here. It's a very innocent or naive love, and it's the love of nature or the love of just something that you don't want to get something from. Like you love a tree, you love a cloud in the sky, you love a flower, you love a rock, like you just love. And it's really the primal state of who you are. So although in the description of this evolution, from physical through emotional through mental and then up to unconditional love, that is seen as the pinnacle in human history, that you get to these levels of refinement through really efforting and trying hard to be a good person and trying to be loving, but that's in this garbage realm. But you are supposed to be at that level of unconditional love, really as the foundation of your nature. And so please know that is how screwed up the world is. Like you start out in a deficit and you have to dig your way out in order to even get to this good position that is, I call it base camp. And I'm going to show you another picture too, so that you can get a sense of this. But it's a stable force field plateau that is created by the figure 8 of your heart that all of your higher faculties rest upon. And it's essential to be able to create that equanimous, that's not the right way to say it, but you know the word, like a balanced persona where you don't fly off the handle and get wildly out of balance, where you stay steady no matter the information that you receive. So unconditional love, it's not being blasé at all, and it's not being in denial. It is being totally accepting of the information that comes to you, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. You're like, okay, that's information. And it recognizes a level of inner wisdom or maturity where you just don't argue, just don't quibble. And you start to get into these layers of the higher faculties where it is not a rational exercise. You simply see, like when I see my inner visions or when I see colors, I'm like, yep, that's red, that's blue, that's orange. Like, don't argue. It is what it is. That is the level of unconditional love. So on the one hand, it is a naive, a pure level of connection with the environment, but it's also in acceptance. When you don't have the hardware and trashola of your mind junking up the experience, you're like, oh, that thing is green, or that thing is there, or that thing is dangerous. Like you just accept the information that comes to you. It's an incredibly important portion of your biological anatomy and also part of your spiritual anatomy. But it's not the pinnacle of who you are, because everything up from there, that's what I call your higher faculties. So up from there, you can see there is a light blue or a turquoise, or you could call it aquamarine. It's not the deep blue of the indigo, and it's located at the throat, and that is authenticity and communication. So it's not just any old communication, like saying a bunch of junk. It is authenticity, being truthful. That's a big part of that area of the body. And I can tell a lot of funny Aurora stories about when I first came here. They all really are like funny, but it's because we use humor to cover up like something that is devastating. Because what really happened through all of those stories was came like you in adulthood, but not a child, as an innocent person into the world. And I was not aware of lies. I didn't comprehend or know about and had never encountered lies. I had only ever encountered people who speak the truth. The blue chakra here at the throat being in correct calibration and authentic expression coming out of that area of people. And this was the first time that I was ever like, oh, I remember the first time somebody said something to me that was a lie. It was not the truth. And I was like, their words do not match their meaning. That's a lie. And that was like a crushing, like a punch to the stomach, like ka-chunka, like, wow, that is a thing. And I had to accept it through my heart. I had to be like, I just saw that, because you want to be like, it can't be. You want to say all these different things. But like, no, that's what that was. That is what that was. And I want you to know that that's just the first of many crushing blows that I received. Probably you have in your life as well. When you keep on getting confirmed or disappointed, you're disappointed but confirmed at the things that you see in the world. Like, that can't be, but that is. But it is. And this is important stuff for being able to navigate the time field, which is what we're going to talk about level 3 stuff today. Navigating the time field and how you make the choices that you make. Okay. So I can also talk about, Aurora stories when I first came here, and I watched some of the TV shows that were popular. And one of them is Seinfeld. It's not a very funny show to me, even when I first came here, or even now with cultural context, because I'm like, everything about that show, like everything can get so much better if these people would just communicate. Like, they really couldn't communicate to each other authentically about anything. And then everything became a stupid pantomime that was just inflaming them. Like, if you would like to take home half a loaf of marble rye bread, please take it. Or if you need confirmation, just ask me, like, hey, am I allowed to have this? Or if you took it and it wasn't allowed to be taken, I would call you up and I would say, did you take that? It wasn't yours to take. Like, these are the way that I navigate the world of authentic people. I was not prepared for a society that's built on total lack of authenticity and the non-hilarious shenanigans that ensue as a result. And also, then you can imagine what I'm like as a roommate or a housemate. Because, like, I don't do subtext. So you can't just be like, put the dish sponge next to the sink and hope that I'm going to know, like, I'm supposed to wash the dishes. Like, you have to tell me. You have to tell me. And so, yeah, I have hilarious stories about that as well. But let's move upward from authenticity and communication to indigo, which is your true mind. So the level of intellect at yellow is a distortion and not your true mind. You should have an intellect, but it should be, I want to say, lean, mean intellect. Like, it should be your ego, but not not an ego that is ruled by, or a sense of self that is defined by the undigested emotional traumas that you have attained in your life, which is how most people define their sense of self. Your true sense of self is who you are beyond your injuries. It's really the most positive aspects of you, like, a person who likes to paint rainbows or something like that. So yes, although of course you've been through some crapola that is recognized, the crapola is not the defining characteristic of who you are. You really define yourself beyond that. Let me just hydrate here. It's a very hot day. So your dark blue chakra at the center of your mind is affiliated with your pineal gland, but not synonymous with. It's really the energy field that comes out from there. And it's your true mind. And you came here with that mind. So the yellow implant, like wherever you were born, if you were born in the United States, they gave you the implant of the United States mind state, historical, cultural context, and also language and slang words and phonemes. How do you communicate with people around you? And of course, if you were born in China, you got acculturated in China and wherever else in the world. So you learned the language and the ways of the people, including the worldview. But the blue, deep inner part of your mind, that's who you are, and that's what you came here with. And there's a level of deep wisdom there. So you don't know everything at that level, but I call that your library card. You can access the truth of the world through that viewpoint. And it's very, very different than the intellect, where in the intellectual level of yellow, you learn from what has been previously established. Oral tradition. People do this from the beginning of time, and then they pass it along to you, and then you receive it now in whatever, the year 2025. And then you're like, okay, I have this many thousands of years of human knowledge in my yellow level of being. But your deep indigo level of being is not dependent upon the flawed transmission of other people through history. It's your direct, untrammeled connection to pure insight or pure knowledge. And each one of us has this, although it has to be recognized. Not everybody's accessing it. It's not equal amongst people. Not everybody efforts to be able to access this the same way. And people's viewpoint through that lens is not equal also. So there are a lot of individuations, and it's also, I want to say so many things about this level of your insight. It's not the end of the journey. And so you're not omniscient or infallible at that level of reality. And you still have an enormous amount of wisdom to achieve, which is going up to the level of violet. And that is really the analog of your highest connection to the divine while still being in a physical container and being, what we would call a person. Just going to hydrate some more. That violet place is singularity, and on your body, it is found in your DNA. Pardon me. So your DNA is a bridge of light, and that's where you plug into these higher, faster, I want to say incinerative. They're like so powerful levels of light that you would be incinerated if you plugged into them directly. All of your chakra system exists as a type of transformer system, like electrical transformers, to take something that is a super high impulse beam that comes directly from the power station of God and brings it through different levels that then can be accepted and utilized by your physicality presence. Because, again, apologies. If your physicality presence would plug directly into the power station, then of course you would be incinerated. Can't go that fast without you have to adjust. Okay, everyone, get ready. Math time. In all of my paintings, I'm consistent, and these consistent patterns are divine harmonics. Sorry, my voice is having so much trouble today. All right. I have arbitrarily decided that red is going to have the value of 12 in all of my paintings. 12 inches is 1 foot, and it's very easy to divide the number 12 up into these larger proportions. But please know that you could start off with red having the value of any number that is important to you, that is easy to subdivide, that you want to work with, and that is in any unit that you're comfortable with. So I started out in inches because I'm in the United States and because 12 inches make a foot, all right? But also because we can divide 12 by 2, by 3, by 4, by 6. It's a good number in all of those ways. So in my drawings and my paintings, I make this larger circle, which represents the physical world, 12 inches. And then what is truthful across all layers of reality is that orange is always going to be 1/2 that size. So I start out with 12. Everybody, I want you to do the math. What is 12 divided by 2? Answer is 6. In all of my paintings, all of my orange circles, always going to be 6 inches. And then the yellow circle is going to be 12 divided by 3. This is easy. You guys can do this. What's 12 divided by 3? 4. It's a 4-inch circle. And then the next one is easy too. The green circle is always going to be, what is 12 divided by 4? It's 3 inches. Now we get into one of the harder places because it doesn't have a whole number or an integer. The light blue color is going to be 2.4. And that's because we have 12 divided by 5. It doesn't work out to an even number, but I have custom cut templates for that one. But when we get back to deep indigo, we get to the level of another beautiful number, a nice whole number. What's 12 divided by 6? You guys can do this. Use your brain muscles. It's 2. All of my paintings have deep blue 2-inch circles in them. And then the final one is violet. Violet is going to be 12 divided by 7. And you're like, Aurora, I don't like that one. It hurts my brain. It is hard. I'm like, I know it is. So I'll do it for you, 1.7. And I do custom templates for 1.7 inches. And it's interesting because 1.7 is very, very close to 1.68, which is proportion that you guys know as phi, Phi, from Phidias, who was the well-known architect of the Parthenon in ancient Greece. And 1 to 1.68 is a very common proportion that is found in nature, that you can find that this digit of your finger to this digit of your finger, or your hand length to your forearm length, or your forearm length to your upper arm length, or your big tooth to your little tooth, or your top of your leg to your bottom of your leg. Like, these are deep, innate, profound proportions that are a part of what it is to be alive. Because when you are alive, you are doing something right in the way that you're shaping yourself. And so it's not by accident at all that a 1.7-inch violet circle fits so well into these larger biological and natural examples of what perfect proportions are, and how perfect proportions are examples of cellular and biological health and longevity. Okay, when I say waves or sizes or frequencies, what am I talking about? You can imagine the edge of your screen as being like a beach with the ocean. You have ocean waves. And there is one red wave that comes in and hits the beach in the same amount of time that you can have 2 orange waves. This is what wavelength means. So all of these waves are moving at the same speed, all right? They're all moving at the speed of light and beyond. Same thing when I teach you in Path of Light about heat, which is infrared, optical light, these other forms of light that are part of the 5 senses. It's all moving at the speed of light, including something like an X-ray or a super high energy beam. But what changes is the frequency, which is the size of the crest of the waves. So in this calibration, in the amount of time that you can have one big giant wave come onto the beach, you can have 2 orange, 3 yellow, 4 green, 5 light blue, 6 dark blue, and 7 little tiny violet waveforms get onto the beach. That's how you can comprehend all of this. So it gives us good way to be on the same page or have a common language of what does wavelength mean, what does frequency mean, and what type of energy are we talking about as these waves are forming. Okay, good. So that was a lot of heavy lifting. Let's go back to my face. Good job. And also, I don't see any questions. That's very positive. Hold on. I'm going to hydrate. It's a very warm day. Keep going. I'll probably have to stop, have a break, and get some more water very soon. Okay, hold on a minute. I'm going to arrange my screen over here. Oh, let me show you this other touch on technology. Show you this. Okay, good. So I know there's no colors here, but where I have my cursor, that's your green. And you can see this big, giant kind of lobe that goes up and another sphere that goes up like that. That is the force field that is known as unconditional love. So it's a little tone that your heart makes. And when you have that tone, you have enough gas in your car to be able to make your higher faculties, quote unquote, go. So I just mentioned about your indigo mind, it's your true mind, it's your connection to this library of awareness. In order to access the library, take books out of the library, you have to have unconditional love in your heart. Or think of it as a telescope. You want to book time on the telescope up here, and you want to be able to see and know more about your environment or about the world. But this is a very expensive telescope to run, $1 million a second. So if you want to look through that viewpoint, you have to save $1 million. and you have to have your heart or your energy bank at your unconditional love level ready to be able to spend or deploy your energy by looking out through your higher faculties up here. So please don't judge yourself. There are times like a spiritual athlete where you will be more fit or less fit. Sometimes as an athlete, you can run 10 miles. Sometimes you can run 1 mile. You cannot judge yourself. You have to do what is right for your body. With the different things that can contribute to like whether or not you can, run your marathon. Are you getting enough rest? Are you getting enough hydration? Are you eating well? Are you taking time to meditate? We're going to talk about that to quiet down the level of yellow where energy is frittered away. Emotional distress. Like, are you in a placid, peaceful, emotional context, or are you surrounded by chaos and crapola? And then also the 5G and Bluetooth and artificial, whatever we call them, frequency assaults that definitely have an impact in reducing your love or reducing your connection to the realm of natural love, which is definitely like a biological, cellular, generated type of love. Because I have definitely found like the 5G is an irritant and it is inflammatory, and it's much harder for me to be in my love state when I'm around that technology. And when they deployed it in roughly 2020, everything became more difficult. So please know that in your efforts and your aspirations to cultivate yourself to the level of love and beyond, everything got more difficult since 2020. And if anybody is a tiny human that is 6 years old or younger, or has a tiny human that you're caring for, that's your child in that age range, their whole entire life and their whole entire inner calibration has happened under this irritant force field that makes it very, very difficult to know what is love and to know what are the things that bring you to love. And we'll talk about that because the things that bring you to love are basically inner silence and pressing pause or turning down the level at the intellect. So we'll return to that. Main thing for this is to be able to see how connectedly, that was not a word, but how directly connected your wheels of your mind at the level of deep blue connect with the force field of your heart. These two things run together. And then also this is your crown or your higher connection. And that is a big part of what are you going to look at with your telescope? So you have a desire, or let me go back to my face. What are you going to take out from the library? What are you going to access in terms of what is your curriculum? What are you going to learn with your higher senses? Or when you look out at the world using your true mind, what is the most important thing for you to know about? This has everything to do with how you navigate the time field and how you know where you need to go in time. Okay, so now all of that was just kind of wrapping up loose ends and things that I didn't do for the past couple of weeks. Now we're finally starting to get into stuff that's from level 3, and that has to do with this shape, the shape of time, and how you navigate this shape. So Pedro, always continue a hat tip to him, has described, because I would describe this and say, oh, like GOTA, game over, try again. GOTA. And this is kind of like from video games and people that have that type of mentality talk about this. And I'm only really familiar with Pac-Man. Don't know that many video games, but I do know, like, you put a quarter in the machine, Pac-Man could go around, but then when Pac-Man gets eaten by a ghost, he kind of falls apart. And then it says, game over. Try again. Put another quarter in and try again. Okay. So this is very directly analogous to what is happening in your life. I don't want you to be sociopathically disassociated from the consequences of your life, or to think that there are an endless number of Doritos in the bag for you to keep on eating, like, chomp another one. No, so these are not disposable, and there's real pain. And every single one of these little last moments, your final denouement on the membrane of death, is a very real painful moment for you. Like, I don't think that it feels that good, whatever, like you're like crushed under a giant weight or smushed on the highway or whatever, an eagle like bites face off one morning. None of those are very fun moments for you, your final moment. So you can't approach it in a blasé way or blithely for yourself or for others. You can't just be like, don't worry, you're going to die horribly, but you'll just circulate right back and everything will be fine. So please take this seriously. And also please know that the ideal is not to have to explore all of the wrong notes or all of the peripheral selves before you get to the central self. So one of the things I want to emphasize for us today is, I draw my little time vortex, which is the lower quadrant here, but I don't always show you the view. If you tilt this up, which then this looks kind of like a record, like an old-fashioned analog record. And there's a lot of similarities there, where this is where like the spindle is. You put the needle, sorry, that's the place where you put it onto the record player, right? But then let's pretend this is the needle on the record, and you start here and the needle goes around and it plays the first song. And then it switches to the next song. There's like an inward spiral. And then that is absolutely truthful in terms of the true path of your consciousness as you are navigating this array of possibilities and probabilities. So when you start off at the outer edge, you're playing the first song on the record of life. And it's not the best song. There's a lot of mistakes there. And as you are able to get to the inner levels, your song gets better. But I want you to know you don't have to play every single bad song, because just like on a regular record player, I don't know if you've ever done a regular record player, you pick up the needle and you move it and then you put it on a better song. So that is your prerogative as an experiencer. The determinism viewpoint, the out of control self, says, it's not my fault. Like, I have to go through all of these different spirals before I could possibly get to these better timelines. So I'm just going to circulate through and then finally get to the better ones. And I'm like, no, you're not supposed to do that. You are supposed to consciously direct yourself onto better timelines. And the way that you do that is through your mental presence and through cultivating your mind. Because what determines which of these timelines or grooves you are experiencing is directly analogous to what's going on in your DNA. So your DNA is dancing. It is not a static object at all. It has motion to it. And for a large portion of your cell's life, the DNA is not tightly coiled up like in its little carry-on bag, all curled up together. It is actually expanded and it is unfurled into what is known as chromatin, which is just like, I would say, a giant quivering mass of stuff. And it's like a tangled ball of yarn, just a bunch of yarn, and it's doing stuff. And it does, it kind of like, it dives into itself, it twirls itself, it makes itself circular, it makes itself go like this and then go like this, it does all sorts of different things. And that is normal for your lifespan. And I've already described to you how there's the mRNA messenger that goes through your DNA and it reads like Braille, the surface of the DNA, to be able to see what is happening in the structure of your proteins. And then your RNA not only creates your proteins of your body, like, do you have brown hair? Do you have brown eyes? It will create those structures. But your DNA is also creating or vivifying the potentials of your life. Like, did you drink coffee this morning or did you have tea this morning? The result of that is directly related to what your DNA is doing. Mind and your behavior, and the behavior of your mind has a direct impact on your DNA. So now we go back to mind as behavior. When I was in the little thumbnail, you might not have been able to really connect with what I was trying to say. Human mind mapping right now, like from these bad scientists, is an insult. Like, it's so erroneous. You should be insulted that they want to pass that off as mind mapping. So please know that your true mind is more than just a linear string of phonemes. I said, like, the cat jumps, right? That's like a simple sentence. And in your mind, you can easily see the word the word cat, the word jumps. And you can see where these things are, but that's not the definition of thought. Nor is it the definition of thought for you to envision a picture, of a cat, whatever, jumping, like on a roof or something like that. Although you might experience, that type of sensory association with a thought. So when I talk about those two things, like either a string of words or a picture, that is like, I have no good words for it. It is not advanced or sophisticated, and it is not your true mind. There's a lot of synthetic telepathy, nano-induced telepathy, and telepathy that is made by scientists who are not good observers of the true mind. And just as there is an inadequacy at the level of yellow of those who have a mind, even defining what mind is, but not being able to comprehend that other organisms have mind. Like I'm looking at a tree out my window right now. It has mind. It has the entire Roy G. Biv from red up through violet. It has a yellow level, but the yellow level that it has does not speak English or Chinese. And if you were going to map the mind of a tree and you were going to try to use some human system or analog to be able to do it, you would not be able to, because where's the tree's brain? Like what it are its sounds that it hears in its mind? There are no analogs. So to speak in a better way, because I'm very critical of science and I really despise everything that they are doing with satellites, the artificial mind mapping, and the artificial mind stimulation, which is an assault. And none of that has to do with genuine telepathy or genuine connection. True telepathy happens at the level of your mind up here. And what happens is you have an abstract packet of information that travels to you, and then it is translated through your biological reservoir of whatever type of organism you're in. So I could send out one generic packet of information that's going to just go out like a fountain to everyone in the world. But then as it comes into your skull and agitates your mind, you're going to interpret it through your human experience and through your own language filter. A tree will interpret that packet through its filter of experience and through its communicative infrastructure. Same thing with a rock shrimp or a microbe. They will receive that information as well and translate it in a way that is digestible or accessible to who they are. So the flawed human intellect and the inadequate human form or viewpoint that you guys are in this class way beyond says a microbe doesn't have a mind because it doesn't have the same type of mind that I do, but it does have a mind. And same thing with the tree. So in utopian paradise, which we are trying to build and inhabit here, you absolutely can and must be a part of this connection of true consciousness or connection of real minds. And it's the ultimate to be able to get to that level. That is what I would define as Christhood. But also, like, you need to be able to have other good musicians, just like at the level of Orange. You don't explore that or build that aspect, refine that aspect of yourself in isolation. Far from it. Community needs community, and you need to be socialized, and you need to learn how to feel and be with a group. And you only learn by doing. So you can't learn as like reading a book. So if people aren't socialized or if animals aren't socialized, they don't get an opportunity to structure themselves on that level. And you also need to have socialization at the level of your Christhood up here, where Christ is literally a network and you're not supposed to be just one contactless individual. You're supposed to have a band or a group of people that you're transmitting signals back and forth between all of you, and that's a big part of mental behavior. So the brain is not comprised of just one neuron. You understand you have many neurons, and brain behavior is really the complex patterning of these various different signals being sent all throughout you. And it's not just a linear pattern, it is polygonal pattern, and it has it changes. Like when I say it has behavior, it changes, and your behavior is like the flavor of who you are. So also part of why I'm so just deranged and upset by the presence of the satellites and the nano architecture and things that are hurting people's minds right now is, you've been dealing with mind control throughout your whole entire world. From the implants, genetic modification and implants in your brain and in your linguistic structure, stuff that is ancient difficulties that you are having to transcend in order to try to reach your own levels of a meta liberation and inner liberation. But in this generation, you also have these impulses that are coming from satellites or other frequency emitters, and they have an impact on the behavior in your mind. So let's talk about like when you begin to master your mind. And also, I'm gonna have to pause for a moment so I can get a drink of water. Hold on one moment. We're going to talk about mastering your mind. Let's talk mastering the mind. This is what many people call meditation. I'm not very good at meditating, like sitting quietly in repose and not moving my body. I'm much better when I can actually like walk or do some kind of dance or some kind of rhythmic something or other, but I do better with movement. But whatever brings you to an inner restful state, you have to figure out some way to stop talking in your mind. So let's talk about what are implanted non-ideal brain behaviors or mind behaviors. First thing is, you didn't come here with language. You were taught to have words in your mind. And when they taught you to comprehend words, they did not give you an off button or even a pause button. And you have to create it for yourself. You have to figure out your own way to come to inner silence. Start to consider words in your mind as being innately friction that slows you down in time. I do best when I'm doing things that are nonverbal. Not very much of a writer, I have to admit, guys, but I love making my music and writing my music. And I also love doing my abstract paintings because when I do those things, I'm not using my verbal mind and I don't have inner friction. So my experience when I'm doing my music, I'm like, I feel this, this is going to be like this, it's going to be like this. Like I don't even have to speak. I just flow. And I'm sure every one of you has something that you're really good at. Whatever, even if it's making bread, if you're like, oh yeah, I know exactly how to do this. I don't even have to use a recipe. I just do it. Boom, 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 boom. There's something that like you're built for. Don't even have to think about it. Do that thing. Do that thing. All right. So this is active meditation. And also you don't have to say like you're built for it or it's your identity. Sometimes it can be a achievable task that is not who you are as a person, but it's just easy to get done. And then you're able to meditate effectively while you do that task. Like some nice person in this class says that they like to do the dishes because they just spend time meditating. And I'm like, come meditate at my house any day because I have a sink full of dirty dishes. I would love for you to meditate over them because I don't often meditate when I'm doing my dirty dishes or whatever. I'm like, let's get this done fast. I got paintings to do. So I'm usually grumbling. I'm usually like, stupid, stuck on dirty grease. Get out of there. I got paintings to make, but everybody, you should find things that are palatable activities that you can do that are socially positive and that are good for your body, like ergonomically good for your posture and everything like that, and that bring you to an inner silence. This is really your definition of who you are as human. Most people define themselves at the level of yellow as the intellect. They're like, that's my ego, that's my identity, that's how my mind works. But when you can press pause on that level of your mind, you can transcend your definition of self, expand and become more than that, and also access your higher faculties, which are largely nonverbal. And so my greatest challenge is I have a lot going on in my nonverbal level of my mind. And very little of it gets translated into the words that I share with people. Like I have so many things that are going on up here. And then my words sound like the cat jumps. And I'm like, oh, the cat jumps. Like that is not really what I want to say. But so please know that there will come a time when we are hyper-connected. And that means totally connected at the level of natural telepathy, which I emphasize, takes place on a bridge of love. Must happen on a bridge of love. So on a natural telepathy, there is not a way for you to have hate vibes or stink lines, like they say, like giving someone the stink eye, can't do that in natural telepathy. The synthetic telepathy that your world has been afflicted with for like the past 5 years is nothing but stink lines. Think of like the social media, like the internet, and the levels of lack of decency and unkindness that people display towards one another. I of course clutch my pearls. I read things on Twitter and I'm like, my goodness, I dropped my monocle. Like I dropped my opera glasses. I can't believe they said that to someone else. But they do, especially from the comfort of anonymity. But no, when you are hyper connected, like um, you cannot be hateful or non-celebratory or whatever cruel. The system itself that transmit thoughts upon does not sustain those emotional states. So it is very much like saying you have to get to a certain level of energy and refinement to even be able to start to talk with others. And then even up from there, you have to learn how to have your true mind. And then also you have to cultivate your divine connection. And that is how a true telepathic society is structured. This isn't the only time I'm going to talk about this. Like I'll get more into this throughout the rest of the semester. Okay. Um, uh, Returning to my metaphor of this being like an old-fashioned record player, the last song is the song that's going to bring you towards the singularity or that central convergence point that is at the center there. One of the things that I have to emphasize is that that opening or that wormhole at the top of that time vortex is only big enough for one timeline. So although there's this whole bundle or this whole array of all these things that could possibly happen, I want to say exit or the way out of here or the transcendence, the timeline of pure transcendence is non-arbitrary and there's only one of it. So that's exactly like saying if this is a puzzle, if life is like a puzzle where you're trying to see how do you solve the Rubik's Cube, there's literally only one way to solve the Rubik's Cube of your life. And what you're doing through your life efforts is to figure out what are those arrangements of thought behaviors that help you to solve the puzzle of life. Your thought behaviors are not just a journey in your neurons from point A to point C. Neuron A to neuron B to neuron C, all right? You have holistic presence going on in your mind. And that holistic behavior of your whole entire mind, everything that's going on in your brain, but also all of your neurotransmitters, how things feel in your intestines, how things feel in your hormonal structures, even how things feel like in your muscular skeletal muscles that you use. All of these things add up to mental behavior. And all of that mental behavior is what propels you or puts you into a context of life. So the deterministic viewpoint says, don't blame me. Don't blame me. I sidestep all responsibility. This isn't my edifice of life structure. Somebody else made all this stuff. Don't blame me. I just work here and I just do stuff that are dictates. I just follow the dictates of my biology and of my mind. And that, of course, is not truthful. What is truthful is that you're absolutely creating, defining, and paving the road ahead of you as consciousness at all times. And determinism is like a person amputating themselves from their own responsibility. But no, you are very, very much the creator of these time edifices and then the experiencer of these time edifices. And also sometimes you might be in a group of potentials where you don't like any of the outcomes of those potentials. And that is when you would flying rainbow lasagna, let me bring this over so you can see it, and rewrite something spontaneously in the moment. So you're like, okay, at a certain point, I created these time edifices. I'm here as the embodied experiencer. Don't like what's going on around me. Maybe something is uncomfortable or perilous. Maybe it's going to make me or someone else die. Let's rewrite this music so that it contains the music of life, and that is flying your lasagna. Okay, now let's talk about personality characteristics that exist in the periphery. We've spoken about these timelines and these places as being non-eternal aspects of self. Like somehow you died, but it's not just the version of you that died. Maybe you, whatever, took a wrong step, took a long walk off a short pier, right? Like you jumped off a cliff or something like that. Far from it. These peripheral versions of self are like your peripheral vision in your retina, direct analogs. In your retina, you have sensitive cells, you have the focal point, which is where the action is. It's where the things that you're looking at are really happening. But then you have the periphery, where you have just a general sense of what's happening, not exact details. That is what these time events are like, and what your characteristics or your personality is like. So this is more than just a convenience of like, I got to get on that central core timeline. Just, I'm going to ascend, like kind of like driving a car. Like I'm just going to drive to a better place. What you have to do is change and grow and evolve in order to get onto the central timeline. So it's not something where it's like, I'm just going to bulldoze my way through existence, get away from these peripheral, parallel existences, and get to the good stuff that's at the center there. And like, but here's me in my time bulldozer, bulldozing on through. And then here's like the Kool-Aid man breaking through the cement and being like, here I am, guys, I'm on the ascended timeline. That is not how you get onto the ascended timeline. You must get there, just like cultivating your heart to be able to access your true telepathy. You have to get to the ascended timeline through your inner efforts and through the cultivation of who you are as a person, creating or generating or refining your characteristics to the essence of you. This also happens on a genetic level, where you have some of your characteristics being expressed. Your DNA is a potential, a field of many different things. Like some stuff you're going to express, some stuff is going to be dormant. Some stuff you're not going to hear in the music. Some stuff you're going to hear really, really loudly. So your exploration through the time field is really how you emphasize and bring forward the parts of yourself and the characteristics of yourself that are going to propel you eternally and keep you going through time, and how to turn down the volume on or remove from your potential the parts that aren't the real you or that slow you down. So this is not just you randomly bouncing around the time field. This is really you defining and exploring yourself and then defining yourself. Some of these parallel peripheral versions of you aren't the real you, and you don't look like your real self. So now you can start to get into a multidimensional viewpoint. Don't use this to disassociate, but use this to comprehend. You will encounter in your life people who are like a shambles. Like maybe they're whatever, like a drunk, shambling homeless person, a raving madman. There's a song lyric, a wild-eyed mystic prophet on a traffic island who's raving about saving your soul, right? I didn't write those lyrics. Those are from a better writer than me. But you know, you've all seen the people that I'm talking about. And they'll be like, I will wash your windshield for $5. Those guys are not their true selves. Or if they have a true self, like let's say you are only encountering the wildly distorted peripheral version, the version that got abused or took a bunch of drugs or is somehow very mentally screwed up inside. But the presumption is that that is an exploration of where that soul is going at that moment, definitely exploring some wrong notes in the musical score of life, but that person will eventually hit the membrane of death, get their assessment, find out all the ways in which they did their math very wrongly, and then the chromatin of their sweater, of their life, gets rearranged. Go onto the membrane of death, and it's like you have a sweater, and all of those loops get pulled out, and they would get assessed. You'd be like, oh yeah, here's where you went wrong. Like that first time that you bought a bunch of crack and smoked crack, that's where you went wrong. And the person is thoughtful. They're like, yes, I see how that affected my life. Like this is in the consciousness level of abstraction. All of those potentials become undone. And the raw ingredients are assembled at the beginning again. So the person can go through their life experience. And of course, they won't make the same exact mistake. They'll be like, oh, that's that moment where I have a residual, deep inner knowledge that I should not pick up the crack pipe in that moment. Be like, no, no crack for me. I got an important life to live. And then you go on to a different level of reality. But then maybe the person is offered whatever, something equally as bad, like here's a syringe of heroin. And they'll be like, oh, I will now explore this instead. Like you can't think that it's that easy. They're probably tempted by many, many negative temptations until they finally get through those tendencies. Addiction is a not self-destructive tendency, but a self-destructive expression of carrying of undigested life form. Like, so I don't have good words for it. Something that came from a life in the past that is emotional residue, and that is afflicting the current experiencer of DNA. They call this family demons, where it is something that is an addiction that happened to great grandpa or somebody behind you way on down the line, but it didn't get resolved in their generation, and then it comes forward in your generation. So there is a lot of kicking the can down the road when it comes to these types of, you would call them entities or thought forms or undigested emotional tendencies. And the person who is responsible is always the person who is here now in their body. So you can't be like, oh, it's not my fault. It's a ghost from 300 years ago that wants to smoke the crack pipe. You have to be like, sorry, ghost from 300 years ago. I'm in charge now, and we don't smoke crack pipes. And then the person is going to transcend that inner tendency and also not carry it forward. That tendency really only exists in the periphery, the side dishes, not the main dish. So if you're in a perfect, pristine system where everybody plays this video game correctly, they are constantly being refined closer and closer and closer to their true self. If you are encountering someone who is wildly disheveled, you are encountering their peripheral self, and in your kindest thoughts, you can envision that they will eventually refine themselves to who they really are beyond self-destruction, addiction, or other forms of negative, behavior. But that's also presuming that the video game, whatever, the arcade will stay open forever. And we know that that doesn't happen, because what happens at a certain point, your mom is going to drive up and be like, it's whatever, it's like 4:30, it's time to go home. I'm making dinner at home, and you have to get out of the video arcade. And you're going to be like, but Mom, can't I just have a few more quarters and try to become an ascent master? And she's going to say, no, have dinner on the table. You have to come with me now. Or maybe the entire arcade, they'll be like, sorry, it's closing time. We all close all of the games now. And it doesn't matter where you are. If you haven't reached your high score, you're not going to do it at this arcade. And that's a really, really important thing to comprehend, because I don't want people to be blasé, to think their lives are disposable, to think that you have an endless number of attempts, and like to think that life is a Gnostic prison stuck here in the material realm with no escape, and you're just like, oh, another day. Or Groundhog's Day, like that movie is of course a tour de force and a comedic masterpiece, but it's an existential nightmare, and you would not want to be stuck within that paradigm of randomly or seemingly endlessly repeating not just one daily loop but a whole life loop. You would want to know that your efforts and self-cultivations are bringing forward into some, I'm considering the right words here, like better form, or that there is a reason and a justification that makes it worthwhile for you to be here experiencing sometimes very uncomfortable things, and that there's some growth and that there's some learning from this. So Because when I give these types of lessons, you want to apply it universally because we are all shaped in the same way. Sometimes I even talk about an insane madman like Hitler. Be like, well, you encountered the peripheral version of him, but the central core version of him, might be very different and have different expression and different values. But nobody gets a free pass. And, if someone is one of history's madmen, you don't necessarily know if they played the video game better and actually did make it to the central core timeline where they're not an insane psychopath killing a lot of people. So you want to look at drug addicts and be like, don't worry, in different level of reality, like they're an okay person, or Hitler. In a different level of reality, you're an okay person. But I think that we can't, it's a little blithe to be that way. And we can't necessarily ascribe the same motives to everyone because you guys are the good guys. You're working hard in the school of life and you're trying to learn and go in the right directions. Some people aren't. And so there's a qualitative difference. And I call those people the sweat hogs, like that old silly show, Welcome Back, Kotter. There's some students are bad students and they're like, I don't want to learn from you. What are you trying to teach me? Look at my face. What are you trying to teach me? I'm not going to learn from you. No, I'm going to sit here in the back of the class and whatever, throw spitballs at someone or write graffiti on my desk instead of learning. And some people would be that way through all of their lifetimes. And there is some existential relinquishment that some people go through. If it's a stage, it's okay, but if it's forever, it's not okay. Just like in Groundhog's Day, at a certain point, the guy's like, nothing matters. This is all just an endless punishment. I'm going to eat whatever I want. I'm going to, whatever, like just jump off a bridge. Like he doesn't care because he hasn't yet connected cause with effect. In that level of his distress, he still thinks that the punishments are random. When you're in a pristine system, the punishments are not random. And if you're intelligent at a certain point, you're like, oh, I did this, and then I got punished. I did this, and then this bad thing happened. I did this, and then this bad thing happened. How about I try doing something different, and then I will experience something different. So please know some sweat hogs do not experience something different. They keep on doing the same negative patterns. In fact, that is how we would define eputis, those pesky occupiers of the interstices. They intentionally did bad math homework on Mars. They did not try to get into the center of their time vortex over here. They intentionally blasted themselves directly onto the membrane of death. So for you sophisticated listeners here in my class, you know that this is a basic truism of your journey. You're good students, but not everybody is treating this forum of time with respect. And so it doesn't matter. Some people, you give them 10 million, billion, gazillion, quadratini million opportunities at the video game of life, and they would still crash and burn. And I do know that quadratini is not a real number, and it is a small, delicious cookie. But all joking aside, some people, no matter how many times you give them the opportunity, they will not find the correct configuration of their Rubik's Cube. And they are not meant to exit this layer of reality because this is a refinery of experience. And they're simply not refined enough to be able to get out. We continue to hydrate, and then let's talk about what happens when somebody dies that you love. Yeah, I wish I had like a regular chalkboard. I would draw it for you very easily. Sorry to be so anti-whiteboard, but I'm touching technology. It's not that easy for me. So imagine that I'm drawing two overlapping vortexes for you. Here's one that's like person A, and here's one that's person B. And we can say like, this is your central ascension timeline, and then here's like the swooping form, all right? So you have two different ascension timelines, but then you have this area where these two lives overlap. Some of this comes down like this, and if this comes down like this, then you have this portion where these two individual time vortexes actually overlap. That's the abstract truth of everybody who is currently in your life. So I'm going to use as the example because I have a person who has gone from my life. My cat I had a lovely cat. She was named Ashley. She was like an unintentional cat, as they often are. Like they come into your life and they install themselves as your supervisor. And so I had her for many years, and then she died. And so what does my life look like, and in regards to her life, or how do we diagram this? What does this look like? Okay, so you have, this is the timeline where I exist, where I'm an ascended master. And this is the timeline where my cat exists, and she is an ascended master. But these two timelines do not overlap. If you look at this, I am far away from her over here, all right? The only places where our lives overlapped in these areas of the sweeping time field. And in those areas, we shared reality. We lived in the same place. We could see each other with five senses, and we could, be on the same crust of the earth together. But then there was a moment where her consciousness shifted away from the periphery. Through her own refinement, she learned and grew. So this is not like death as a punishment or as a negative thing. And I was concerned when I used the word punishment before, because I think some of you might have been destabilized by it. Like, that's not the right word. But I'll refine that. But my cat learned and grew from her experiences here. I also learned and grew. And so what happened is we both shifted from being slightly askew like this to being closer like this. Not all the way, but we shifted closer to our optimum timelines. And in doing so, we shifted away from each other. So this is me, and I was on these timelines over here, I got to over here. And she also went to over here, but we shifted away from each other. This is the most abstract and most like emotionally neutral way to comprehend what happens when you have like a loved one, or a pet or someone like that who dies and they're not in your world anymore. Don't use this to avoid grief, because like clearly it happened many years ago, and I already grieved the loss. I already cried. I was very sad and everything. But here is now how you can comprehend after you go through your emotional grieving process, because emotional grieving is not intellectual. It's not level of yellow. It is down here in the level of orange. And the level of orange, you have to process things, just like you have to digest things. So you can't just be like, oh, like, whatever, I ate my lunch and now, boom, it's processed, done. Like, no, your lunch has to go through all these tubes, and then eventually you will be done. So when you have grief, you have to process it emotionally. It is a convoluted journey. You can't just declare yourself done. So don't use this as a way to simply shield yourself from the grief process. But when you've gone through that emotional level, please comprehend this, that when you move away in time, your loved one still exists. But to their viewpoint, you are the one who has died or has passed on. So when my cat shifted onto her timeline, I perceived her as dying. But what really happened was she stayed alive in another world. And in that version of reality, I'm the one who died. I never came home. So I went out, driving to the grocery store one day and got hit by a truck on the highway and never came home. And my cat was like, wow, you went out front door and then I never saw you again. To my viewpoint, she went out the front door and I never saw her alive again. Got it? But on those levels of reality, I had to come to understand that I am not in physical existence anymore. She had to be taken care of by, some good friends, and they adopted her. And then she remembers me as the person that isn't here anymore. And then that also is part of growth. Even though grief is very painful, can't just avoid it or pretend it away. You have to go through the process, because that is part of growing. And then also, this is not the end of the journey. Each one of us is going closer and closer to the optimum timeline. And then there's only one place where those optimum timelines all meet again, and that is here. So remember last week, I did art history class, and I taught everyone all about 1-point perspective. And in 1-point perspective, you have, a central convergence point, and all of the lines go to that convergence point on your canvas. Basically, parallel lines meet at infinity. If you want to experiment with this truth safely, go stand on like some railroad tracks or a very straight road or something like that, and you will see it goes all the way out to the horizon. Here's the horizon, the parallel lines of railroad tracks go all the way out to the horizon, and they meet at infinity. All of these individuated lives and pathways wildly diverge. In the end, the only place that you re-encounter those timelines and traveling companions are at infinity. But when you encounter them from where you have diverged, like if my cat died, whatever, 8 or 10 years ago, when I re-encounter her, like when we meet again at infinity, I will have grown on the timeline where she doesn't exist, and she will have grown and evolved on the timeline where I didn't exist. So I will be meeting the same version of my cat that died on that day, and she won't be meeting the same version of me. I will meet the person who she became through subsequent life experiences, and she will meet the version of me that stayed alive. I didn't get struck down on the highway that day, and I kept going, and I became this person here who teaches this class and does all these things. Got it? So please apply this to your own life. I'm sure every one of you has someone that you love and maybe they're not here anymore. And you wonder about what it will be like if or when you re-encounter them. I don't encourage people to think about, like a death afterlife, reward punishment type of paradigm, or the sense that you're going to meet in like a Christian heaven of white clouds or something like that. But you will re-encounter all of these people who are really important to you, or loved ones, and you have an enormous amount to share with them because your viewpoint, like your vectors of how you get to infinity, are different. So you're gonna want to catch up, is a better way of saying it, like from when you last connected to who you became, and then who you end up being as the final perfect version of self that is the eternal self. So you will encounter, again, your loved ones or pets that aren't alive anymore. They won't be in exactly the same form or look and be the same person that once knew. They kept on growing. They kept on evolving. So maybe I should use as an example, like a friend that's a human that I know that passed on like 10 years ago. She wasn't a perfect person. She was like, a crazy artist, like many of my friends, had troubles, ups and downs, and, whatever, substance abuse issues. But she died very suddenly. And then, of course, I recognize like our timelines split apart. I know that we will encounter one another again, but she won't be that same person. Like she will be the person when I encounter her that, maybe from her viewpoint, I died from epilepsy or something like that. And then she kept on going and she got her life together and made artwork and did things and then became her best version of self. When parallel lines meet at infinity, or when you're on the bullet train of infinite speed and you're re-encountering all of these people that you knew from physical experience, you will encounter them as their most perfect or highly refined aspect of self and their truest characteristics, not any of the peripheral things. And so the things that aren't your true self don't come with you. And the parts of you that are eternal come with you. So like, please know, like you're not your substance abuse issues or your mistakes that you've made in life. Those are the things that are like peripheral and they're vestigial, like they dry up and fall off. Consulting my notes, making sure that I'm doing this right. Okay, good. Because it is the appearance of death because you have no longer overlapping realities. They have your friends or whoever's passed on transferred their attention to the center. So I haven't spoken enough about this. The needle of awareness is your attention on the record of your life. This is the needle of awareness, and it goes around and around and around. It is your attention. And we have to talk about what is that? Hydrating. Okay. Attention comes from Greek, and it means attenuos, to reach out. So your attention when your teacher in school would be like, class, pay attention, tap, tap, tap on the board. What she was doing was saying, please reach out with your mind, make a little tendril that goes from your mind over here to the board or to whatever I'm pointing out over here. We say pay attention because literally it is the energy of love and awareness that is flowing through your tendril of attention. What puts you on a particular timeline is your perception, your tendril of attention. There are many potentials all around you that you're not experiencing. It is only what you attend to or put your tendril on that is what becomes real and vivified. That's the essence of how you navigate time. Also, you're not supposed to have to navigate time randomly or bounce around in an uncontrolled manner. You're really supposed to be able to see clearly through your like windshield on your vehicle and to be able to intentionally place your attention on things that you want. So you can think of that as like, going to the library and making a conscious choice about which book am I going to read? Like, do I like this book? Do I like this book? Do I like this book? I will intentionally put my tendril of attention onto this reality structure. Even before the 5G and different forms of implanted technology, I had to teach this class and tell people that you have to effort. Something has been attempting to draw humanity away from the most important and focused. I didn't have a good word for it. The timelines that feed you the most nourishing timelines, and put people onto timelines that are diluted or that contain very little nourishment. And that's genetic modification that's happened to humanity over many millennia, esoteric falsehoods, false light, things that were lies and detracted and distracted people. Money is a big one because people are tempted or motivated away from the good timelines you need to be on in the efforts of what they think will give them money for survival. And so money as being a way to distort people moving through the time field, moving through the presence. And then also anything that's a psyop or anything that is untruthful. So death cult religions, propaganda, historical lies, things that are fictitious. These things are not just harmless nonsense. They're not just, whatever cotton candy or something that is filling up your mind with nonsense. They literally dilute your attention and bring you into negative and peripheral realities. And similarly, when you are trying to do the right structure with your own mind, with your own body, to be shaped in the right way, it's very, very difficult for you to go to the central timelines when the factors that are around you are trying to disarrange your mind and bring you away from those central core timelines. So at this point, it's not even a meritocracy where it's like you are going to practice. Hey, kid, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? You got to practice, practice, practice. How do you get to the central core timelines? You have to practice and be a good person. You have to do all those things, but you have to effort a lot. Because as you are like bicycling or efforting, something is trying to slow you down or trying to drag you over or trying to destabilize you. And none of that is the pristine system or the way that this is supposed to be. I'm just going to restart my treadmill. Sorry, I don't have batteries in my remote control, so I got to pause this. Hold on one sec. Here's a nice question. Let's take a moment. This is from Joni. Thank you for being here. It says, can visiting high energy geographical locations be part of directing one's consciousness towards that one timeline of pure transcendence? Yes, and I'm hugging you through the screen. So, some of those places might be places that are generally defined as being like power spots and places that are significant, but some of these places might be personally significant to you. So I will definitely tell you when I have gone to Mount Shasta, that place is a power place for me. When I go there, the energy of the mountain and the kind of like circular rings of energy around the mountain are absolutely, they energize me. They help me to remember who I am on my truest soul level, that the energy of that place, it reminded me of who I am as Aurora in concurrent or past Atlantis. So much deep emotional truth. Like when I went there, I felt like my true self. I was like, this is how I feel. Like I know who I am. Very, very important. So that, so how can I characterize this? So like going to Mount Shasta, that's different than something like going to the Eiffel Tower. Like one is a mountain, one is something that people built out of steel girders. But you can go to the Eiffel Tower and you can also have a refining experience or a defining experience where it can be important to you. So big yes. Our mind state and our response is not in a contextless void. It absolutely happens in the presence of or in the context of external alignments, the things that can help us to become more aligned with the truest nature of ourself, things that are pristine vibrations, like pristine frequencies. So those are things that might be in special places in nature or carefully constructed places, like, a cathedral or something where everything is carefully arranged, or a redwood forest where nature has created a cathedral and carefully arranged everything. The places that tend to dilute are places where you have a lot of technology, random signals, and also things that are distractions and where it's difficult to focus. So let me think. I'm sure you guys all have your special places, and you don't have to share them because sometimes that's good personal information. But yes. Like I have oh my God, it's like so many competing thoughts. Another thing to comprehend is some people's psychic gifts have to do with their tactile sense. So your tendril of attention, like when you're in a particular place, you'll feel stuff from your attention in that place. And it can be very, very difficult to know what you're going to feel without going to the place. It's like, I can't tell what the flowers are going to smell like. I have to go there and smell them. Got it? So some people's psychic gifts work well from a distance. They can be in a physical location here, but send their tendril of attention somewhere else and learn about that place. So it could be here now, but you're like, I want to learn about the Parthenon and ancient Greece. I will send my tendril of attention back through time to ancient Greece, right? But some people's psychic presence is through their person, like through their body. So if that's who you are, you need to go to these places and feel what it feels like there. And there's no replacement to be able to say, I saw it in a book or I thought about it from far away. You have to go there and feel it. So not everybody even has this capacity at this moment. Many of you might not have yet explored that you have this psychic power, because you might not have had the opportunity to go to a variety of different environments and feel them and feel how different you feel in these various different places. And also, someone out there is thinking about the tendril of attention, and is it a direct analog to the formation point, which is also in some Carlos Castaneda books about, if I can remember this correctly, the assemblage point, where it's almost considered like you have bundles of timelines, and it's like the focal point of where your mind is focused, kind of like in the shell of reality that is around you. I think that that's a little bit facile because it's not a direct analog. Like, where is the needle of awareness? Here. Is it like, is my needle of awareness here? Is it on my shoulder? Is it on like my hip bone? Like your needle of awareness is not in one physical place in the world, but it is a collection of timelines where you are focusing yourself. And this is, I think, actually good for me to be able to say this too. As I've been speaking about avoiding contributing to any end of the world mentality, you want to avoid those timelines. You want to not be placing your attention and your belief system and your expectation on those timelines and instead base your expectation on viable time containers or extrapolations of reality going forward. So actually, there's so much more to be said, but wait, first let me go to Elmer, who says, what do you think about people who try to predict theirs for others' time of death? I remember a spiritual teacher who has the ability to see a person's time of death. So these super yellow caution flags with any type of prediction about the future, even something as mundane as what will you have for lunch or what dress will you wear? As soon as you receive that information, it's going to have an impact on your decision making, on your behavior of your mind, on your behavior of your DNA. And you will go in a modified or unpredictable path. So you can't put stock in any of these predictions about the future, especially about people's death. And it is also hugely irresponsible as a person who has some amount of activated insight to use it to tell other people about their death. Each one of you should be having your own activated, like your eye that sees down the road of time so that you can be guided moment to moment and know what you need to do and know if what you're doing is effective and is aligning you with the best outcomes. And in every moment, like as you start to think, oh, tomorrow I'm going to wear a blue dress, and your eye of mind is going to look down the road and be like, here I am wearing that blue dress. And oh no, like whatever, like an alligator eats my face off and I die. Don't wear that dress tomorrow. Make a different choice. But that's very different than if someone else calls me up and says, Aurora, see your future. Don't wear a blue dress tomorrow. You must change your behavior. Because we literally cannot guide and we cannot see other lives effectively. We can only see our own road ahead of us. So this is any type of read of the future. Who should I marry? What should I eat for breakfast? When am I going to die? All of those things are questions that only should be answered by your own relationship to time. And the real answer to any of those questions are there's an array of answers. Like, what should you eat tomorrow? Like, there's a million different things that you should eat tomorrow. There's a million different dresses that you can wear. Like, there's such a large number of choice points that it is almost impossible for someone else to tell you what you should do in order to get onto your optimum timeline. So yes, yellow caution flags on anyone who volunteers to try to tell you your time of death, or like who gives you that information, or on the concept of it. Like, that's not responsible spiritual teaching, and it doesn't help people. And then also, so as soon as you're told the moment of your death, of course, it would all change and it would shift or it would recalibrate. But there is such a thing as the fulfillment of your expectation, or a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is what the larger planetary structure, we have to make sure that that doesn't happen. But we don't want people to have simply inborn or groomed, implanted expectation that the world will end, or that you will move towards inevitable destruction, and then have people un or subconsciously manifest that because it's what's been put into them. So it's also very irresponsible if you say to someone, as a spiritual teacher or as any type of a teacher, or even as a manicurist or anybody in someone's life, if you're like, oh, like I can read I'm doing your nails. Here I am, a manicurist, I'm doing your nails. Like, oh, I can read your palm. Terrible things are going to happen to you. Be like, that is not responsible. This is not how you help people. And also, so like, if you have had that expectation, because sometimes what can happen with parents, teachers, and coaches is they can say like, you got no future. And if they give you that pronouncement, then you're like, I don't even want to try. I have no hope. Everything is going to be bad. Or doctors. Doctors are really guilty of that quite a lot. They will give people a negative prognosis And then the person carries that going forward. I know someone who was diagnosed with whatever, some deadly disease at age 12, and literally everyone in her life told her that she was going to die. Like, I think she's 79 at this point. She's outlived every member of her family, all the doctors that originally gave her that prognosis, and several boyfriends and lovers. So just please know that these are not truthful things, and it does take a lot of inner resolve to recognize, like, oh, like, I think that that's not my fate, but that someone is negatively implanting that or programming me for that expectation. And health is actually a great part of this. This is the part in the lesson where I talk about, sorry about that. Go over to here, identical twins and the concept of epigenetics. Yes. Because we're talking about like building the house of reality. I'll read directly from here. Time and awareness. Your third eye is like a steering wheel of the car of time. And your imagination focuses your awareness on a particular pathway of time. It's determining which timeline you're actually going to experience. So please know, if my friend went to the doctor and the doctor implanted in her imagination that at age 12 that she would die, she had to reject that and then have a different imagination of actually, somehow moving forward and doing something different so that she wouldn't die. And the difference between determinism or simply acting out patterns that are implanted and forging, but not forging, creating or innovating a new path, this is the concept of epigenetics. So this is evidenced in identical twins. Identical twins have exactly the same potential, exactly the same Rubik's Cube, but they approach it differently. They have different behavioralisms. They have different behavioralisms of their mind. A behavioralism of your mind is a mind pattern, a tendency, a way of doing things. It's not something that is memorized information. So when I make my music every day, I'm innovating. I just don't have memorized patterns where I'm like, this is what Mozart wrote. I will do what he did. I'm like, I have 88 keys on the keyboard and I can do whatever I want today. I'm going to innovate some new stuff. So you have the capacity to innovate and make something new. That in itself is an additional degree of freedom, evidence of accessing a higher dimension, and it is what allows a person to be more or be defined as more than what is merely written in their potential or in the force field of potential for their life. So you have things that you could become, but then you also have very many things that you can self-define. If you came into this world and you're like, I'm just going to be exactly the person that mommy, daddy, and a variety of teachers and doctors define me as, like, you will be a limited person. But if you're like, I am going to be the person that I define as my greatest potential, then you will be who you're supposed to be. Because I don't know what type of life you guys have had, but like, I certainly know people in my life that defined me as being less than what I can do. And that was their limitation, not my truth. And then I became, something much more complex and more multicolored. And definitely when it came to doctors' prognoses, medically, scientifically impossible. And I would encourage all of you to do something similar in your own life. So the expectation might be a doctor will say, like, oh, like, someone has this, and this is what's going to happen to you. You're like, that's one reality, but that doesn't have to be my experienced reality. So in identical twins, they have exactly the same genetic code, the same Rubik's Cube, but maybe one guy eats a lot of broccoli and has a stress-free existence and does a lot of cool, fun artwork. And maybe one guy eats a lot of bad fast food and lives in an urban nightmare, like whatever, Los Angeles, and never brushes his teeth. Like, this guy gets terrible diseases because of the way he lived his life. And this guy lives a good life and doesn't die. This is the essence of what I'm talking about here. So, I will very, very much affirm determinism or fate is not the ultimate truth of reality. When people are going through their existential gyrations, like the guy in Groundhog's Day, they're like, why is this place so uncomfortable? And this isn't fair. And this isn't fair. And why is this going on? Why is this happening? And I haven't figured out the way to do stuff yet. Then they're like, throw it all in the bin. Clearly, this is my fate. I'm destined to suffer, and I should just do nothing. Go limp. Go limp. Do nothing. If you do that, you stop learning. So what you have to do is you have to try to learn and be like, wow, I'm going to presume that I'm in an intelligent system and the system is responsive to me. What can I do to make this experience different? And I'm not encouraging you to game the system or to hack the system or to be unauthentic. I want you to be your authentic, real self, but I want you to know that there is a divine intelligence and a harmonic structure to the system. And when I tell you, okay, we're going to start off with red circle, that's 12, and the orange circle is 6, that is part of comprehending the structure of the system. Because when you're moving through your experiences of your life, some of them are conforming to these larger harmonic structures. And when you do that, right, your life feels easy and comfortable and good. You don't feel like the guy in Groundhog's Day who wants to like eat a bunch of cake and then jump off the building. You feel good. You're like, I don't want to self-destruct. My life is in the groove. And that feeling of being in the groove is literally being in the record groove over here, but also the groove of your DNA, because your DNA has these convolutions and these groovy surfaces that your mRNA messengers go on. And when you're in the groove, you're really in the groove. You're really feeling your optimum timelines here. So wait, okay, so okay, follow-up question from Joni says, so getting an Akashic reading from someone is yellow flag. Is it because the subjectivity of the reader becomes quantumly entangled and therefore no longer neutral? Absolutely. Quantum, what they call QHHT, these hypnotic regressions, Akashic readings, and many other facilitations are yellow flags. And it's not that the person is evil. It can be a very well-meaning person wanting to give someone else advice or a view of the future so that they can make good choices. But as soon as you tell people about what you are seeing, if you are the reader, you're influencing them, and also you're seeing through your own limited or flawed viewpoint. And it's okay to be limited and it's okay to be flawed. I'm like, I make cake and this is my recipe and this is how I do stuff. And if you ask me how to make cake, like I will tell you through my filter of experience, it is not the only way to make cake. It is not the only recipe. So what if you go to someone and get an Akashic reading and they give you their recipe of cake and their view of the world, and you internalize that as some kind of a written in stone expectation, and then you fulfill that prophecy, then it has been, I think, a diminishment of everyone, a diminishment of even the potential of the time field itself. So what the best thing to do is to be able to learn from a master how to access your own Akashic record and then do your own read. And this is what I would encourage everyone to do. So the tendency for someone to influence someone else during any type of hypnotic suggestion, like it's almost, you can't be neutral. It's almost impossible to not influence someone else. So the best thing to do is to teach people how to read for themselves. And this is what happens when you activate your higher faculties. When you do that, first of all, you have to learn your meditation, whatever form of meditation. Come wash my dishes and meditate. Then you will get energy in your energy banks. Then it will be possible for you to be able to access this form of mind and this form of guidance from your DNA or from the perfectly pure water that your DNA is floating in on an inner molecular level. That is really great teacher or the librarian of your entire library system. And that inner librarian will curate information that comes to you and will say, look over here, like the best teacher. The best teacher will say, pay attention over here, and then pay attention over here. And this is what correct mind behavior is. So this is deep stuff, because incorrect mind behavior is like this. Look at a billboard advertising something, then look at your phone. That's going to say some false light nonsense. Then look over here at the television, then read some government propaganda. And not only the information is false light, but the pattern that your eye moves between these various different points is false light. One of the most important things that you can do is restore your eyesight through the natural behavior of your eyes as you rove around the environment. So your eyes should caress the environment. Almost nobody has natural behavior of their eyes anymore because literally our attention is drawn through different marketing techniques. So they know how your eyes work. They're like, write this big and put it on a sign that's flashing over here. Your eyes will be drawn to it. You know what I mean? Like there's a sushi restaurant here in town. It has this thing that goes like this. I'm like, I don't want to look at your silly sign. Like, I don't want that going into my eyes. You understand this, like it's marketing and it's invasive and it makes it not possible for you just to walk around the world as innate, innocent intelligence and be imprinted upon. So advertising is inherently an assault and a disrespect of your eyes, even how people read when you are presented with, a page. Like, that's why actually, I don't know if you can see, I have different highlights and things like that. So that way, when I look at the page, I'm like, oh, here I am looking at this part in green. Here I'm looking at this part in red. They know with fonts and different things like that, exactly how you will respond when you are presented with something like this is in red and this is big and this, you're going to read this. All of that is very intentional. So another good analogy that I have beyond the world of marketing and advertising are I'm taking care of these little baby chicks. I hatch them out of eggs. Like I am in charge of their environment. Everything that they imprint upon is because I have given them that, stimulation. And so I'm very intentional. Like the first little thing that they ever drank water out of is a little round red thing, right? So that they imprint upon that and they're like, that is where water comes from. This is what I'm looking for. And then when they get bigger, the drinking spout looks like a red thing. You got it. And I do this very intentionally so that way I'm like helping to guide them through the things that they are imprinting upon. Okay, so there is a larger divine intelligence. The God that makes these divine harmonic patterns is just like the same version of me helping to socialize these little chicks. The larger divine intelligence will show you patterns and be like, first look over here, then look over here, then look over here. Now apply that to the larger world. It's difficult for you to learn when you're not paying attention to the divine intelligent, like teacher of God, like divine wisdom, paying attention to like the internet advertiser that puts a pop-up thing like in the middle of the page, right on top of what you're trying to look at. Very difficult for you to have your natural mind behavior. So then what you have to learn to do is be like, get out of my face, get out of my face, get out of my face. Because you start to recognize and edit out the stuff that's fake and that is distracting. And that's an important lesson for you to embody here as well. You're like, this place is a fish with bones. I can't just eat everything. I can't just take in all of the information here. Some of this is a distraction. Some of it is outright lies. Some of it is unhealthy for me to internalize. And then you begin to create artistic choices or aesthetic choices about what you embody and what you reject. And this is exactly the same as the concept of epigenetics. You don't just take your whole entire genetic code and say, this is what I'm given. I'm going to word for word create that in reality. You're like, this is what I'm given, but I can be selective about how and when I energize or express these characteristics. Then you become like a true artist or like a true musician. So again, I don't really read music or really play from other people's work. But when you're a musician that is like that, a classically trained musician, there are the notes that Mozart has written, but you add artistry to how you express those notes. Everything from how strongly you play, you really bang on the keyboard or play very gently, or how long do you hold a note, or other forms of the aesthetics of expression. that are how you add your flavor. This is how you move through time as an eternal being, expressing your characteristics even within the correct musical score of the larger fabric of divine intelligence. There are certain things that you must do in order to stay alive and in order to conform to these larger patterns. But within those parameters, you can make an enormous amount of self-expression, and you are encouraged to. So I add my flair to the perfect harmonic patterns. Those Roy G. Biv proportions, that is something that I did not invent, but I add my flair to it. And whenever I do my paintings, I'm not just taking something that is an abstract pattern and then I'm like, I am stupid. I'm just going to do this abstract pattern. Like, no, of course not. I make choices. Like if something is going to be blue, is it going to be really, really bright blue? Is it going to be a pale aquamarine? If something is, whatever, any of these colors, how intense is the color? Is the green yellow green, like a leaf that just came in spring, or is it evergreen, or a deeper, darker green that is in the wintertime? Like these are artistic choices. And so please know that that is a direct expression and an analog in your life. If you're like, okay, let's say the musical score of your life says that Aurora had peanut butter and jelly for lunch, but like, how? How did I have peanut butter and jelly? Did I have it like with the crusts cut off? Did I have it with jelly squashing out the sides? Did I have it cut on the slant? Did I have it, how did I do it? And also like, did I eat it like standing up, inattentively, rushing through my meal? Or did I sit down like with the picnic blanket and tuck in a little, ascot on my clothing? Like, did I, how did it feel? How was it expressed? These are aesthetic choices and expressions of the artistry of your character that are what define you, either moving towards those central, real definitions of self or towards the periphery. Please know that amidst the entire array of every branching timeline that you can go upon, there's always going to be some self-expression that is at your disposal. Some people will be like, I can't make any self-expression because I have to get up at 8 a.m. and then by 8:30 I have to be here and then I have to do this at this time, I have to do this at this time. Even within a very limited set of parameters where you think you don't have that much self-expression, there's a ton of self-expression. And in order to be free, like the character from Groundhog's Day, what you must do is find and explore the levels of self-expression within the preset parameters of your life. I will have to get this place at this time. I will have to do this at this time. I will have to be here experiencing this at this time. But how? How do I eat my peanut butter and jelly? Do I eat it like wearing a rainbow dress? Or do I eat it like dressed like a boring slave? Like you have a ton of wiggle room, and your effort in your life is to maximize your wiggle room or your sense of self-expression, so that way you are, again, like, you have to eat, you have to drink, you have to poop, you have to stay alive, but within those parameters, you are fully expressing your, I would say divine artistry, but also your prerogative. Your self-expression is your prerogative. I didn't speak about that enough in defining these layers of reality. I said that the red layer of reality is your physical cellular structure, and it is. It is also exemplified by the concept of the I am presence. That's basically like saying, I am. Like, deal with it, suckers. Like, I am. And you get so much attitude. I am. Oh, I am. It's the foundation of who you are, and you don't have to justify or excuse who you are. Like, I am. But that's also like, how are you? You can am in a lot of ways. You can be and exist in a lot of ways. And that's what all of these other mitigating layers are about. But when you look at yourself and your self-expression, really don't owe anyone an explanation. You are simply allowed to exist. And your existence is the positive proof that you are doing something right. You're like, look, I'm breathing. I'm eating, I'm pooping. I'm doing something right. And everyone around you would have to be like, yes, Aurora, although I don't agree with your political ideals, your ability to eat, metabolize, and stay alive is obviously, exemplary, and you're doing something right. And this is the same when we start to get to these levels of being an ascended master. Like as you're getting closer and closer to these ideal levels of reality, you don't have to justify or excuse yourself socially. Let's say the proof is in the pudding. You're like, hey, I'm ascending. I'm me with my attitude. And that's correct. And it's not up to anyone else to be like, you're ascending wrong or get onto this timeline. I don't like what you're doing. That's the essence of what I have to share with you here. Moving beyond not only death codes and recipes for behavior that are negative, but moving beyond any externally created or imposed recipe for your behavior so that you're innovating in each moment. What is the version of you that is ascended? What does the ascended master version of you look like? Now I will get far away from my notes, but we have to talk about this because many people love and adore Jesus, and I do too. He's an amazing person, but many people think that the ascended version of you is going to look exactly like him. And there have been wonderful, we'll call them like not name brand. If he is the name brand ascended master, there have been a lot of amazing people or avatars of goodness in our world. And I think of some of them who are like in the Himalayas or the areas in India, and they definitely have done amazing things. You just haven't heard about them. But you also should not try to imitate them or their successful path to ascension. Like if one guy decided to become an ascended master by going on a pilgrimage and walking around a mountain 100 times, that was the recipe that worked for him, but it is not necessarily an analog that transfers to you in this body or you in this time place. So the things that people love and adore about what we know as the historical Jesus, they're like, oh yeah, like I want to dress like him. Please don't. Like he wore what was comfortable and fashionable in his time. You have to wear what is comfortable and fashionable now. And many of the other, vagaries of his life, be like, he ate what was available in his world. He ate fish because he lived on a sea, like on the seacoast. Like if you live inland and you can't eat fish, like don't try to be like an ascended master. That is not the way for you to ascend. You have to eat whatever is available in your world. And those are just two aspects of daily life, what you dress like and what you wear. There are other things too. So when you're ascending, there's not the way for someone else to be like, you're ascending wrong, or you don't look right while you're ascending. There is often self-judgment when people don't want to look the wrong way when they're ascending because of what they think they should look like based upon other people who have ascended or what they know about their journey. And I'm trying to tell you that your ascension is your own unique recipe, and it's not anybody else's place to judge it. And you shouldn't judge yourself either, because this is why violence has been judged and why evil and garbage has proliferated in the world. Because a lot of people don't want to look bad while they're ascending. They're like, I want to be on the central core timelines. I want to be experiencing and inhabiting my greatness. And that doesn't look like me being, a violent person or, like a martial artist or punching or kicking or anything like that. Like we're looking at peaceful, wearing all white, floating upwards, like I'm being sarcastic, but I call it, people don't want to break their ascension manicure. They're like, I don't want to set a boundary. I want to look good while ascending. I don't want to break my nails. I don't want to have to say to someone that I don't like their face or that they're being an idiot or that they're being bad. I just want to be all nice and cool and pretty and fantastic. And it's like your journey of ascending might be confrontational to evil. You might have to violently confront either the abstract of evil or people who are doing evil. You might have to break your ascension manicure. That means that you might not be able to just sit around looking cool and enlightened all the time. You might have to do something that makes other people think like, you don't look very good, like maybe you look like you're disheveled or just not like a perfect person, but you have to do those things as part of your growth process and also setting boundaries in the world. So the process of enlightenment or ascension is unique to each individual person. And then also, like, you can't judge yourself or say, like, I'm not looking as ascendy as I want to be, or that guy doesn't look as ascendy as he should be. This speaks to the sense of you in your own viewpoint, using your attention to see down the road of time and being able to kind of like defend your thesis. Like, I know what I saw. I know what I am doing, what I'm doing. That is what matters. And then other people's viewpoints don't matter. And then, of course, parallel lines do meet at infinity, and you will meet and encounter these people. And it might go something like this. Like, hey, when I saw you and you were ascending, I was judging you and I thought, that guy's doing it all wrong. He doesn't look right. He's totally whatever, messing up his manicure, not doing ascension the right way. But then you ascended. And now that I see who you are, what you were doing, I learned from your journey. You did what was right for you. So this is really big stuff, because this has to do with, like, what do you eat? Are you allowed to be a meat eater? Do you imitate Jesus? Do you just eat fish? Are you allowed to do this? Are you allowed to do that? So many people tell you can't ascend if you're eating a cow. I know this one guy, he was a fruitarian, and his worst nightmare, literally, that he shared with me was that he was in the middle of ascension and then all of a sudden ate hamburger and he stopped ascending, because that's like, in his mind, he would think like that would be a deal breaker. And I'm like, it's not a deal breaker, but you have to reassess all of these expectations of what you think puts you onto the central core timeline. It's not following religious ideals or following orthodox dietary habits, or really anything that's easy enough to be able to say in a recipe, like, here's how you ascend. First one of these, then one of these, then one of these, then boom, like, you're ascended. It is a totally unique experience to each one of you. I have so many more things to say from, but I want to go to more questions over here. Jody says, there is photo artwork that when you soften your vision, a 3D object comes forward. Is this like caressing with eyesight? Maybe. I have done those magic eye wallpapers. And what that requires is kind of like unfocusing and looking through. But you still have to kind of keep your eyes frozen, kind of like they're frozen. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I see the thing now. What I'm talking about is how your eyes move across a landscape or move through a painting. So I'm an artist, and when I make a painting, I know that most people enter a painting at the lower right-hand corner. That's where you look at the first thing here, and then you look at this thing here, and then you look at this thing here, and then you look at this thing here. So your eye flows across the page or flows throughout the composition. And what we should do is have a similar thing in our landscape, where you're not like a billboard, cell phone, and then a person's face. Where you look at like, oh, like I see that bird that is flying there, and this the tree limb goes like that, and then I see that goes like that. So really, the natural way for you to use your eye in a landscape or across a page is through figure eights. Beautiful, flowing figure eights. And if you can move your eyes through these figure eights across your landscape and across the page, you will have great eye health and eyesight throughout your life. Unfortunately, but mostly we have to move our eyes like this. Back to the beginning, back to the beginning, back to the beginning. And it's so linear and so back and forth. This is not the normal way to move your eyes. And this is why most people end up needing glasses. Totally figure eights. You get it. You get it. So yes. And please know, like, I'm like anyone in the world wanting to use my natural eyesight, but having to conform to the way that our books and screens are structured. So I also tell you guys, I'm a very slow reader. I think a more accurate way of talking about myself is that reading is an inherently uncomfortable activity for my brain, even beyond my focal abilities or, anything like that from brain injury and how my eyesight works. But having to focus on a little tiny thing and go back and forth like this is so inherently uncomfortable to me that I have a limited amount of patience that I can do with that. So like reading emails or reading messages on the computer, and then I'm like, okay, my eyes are done. I can't view like that. But when I do my painting, my eyes move over my whole entire desk area. So if I'm doing my painting, I have, like a big giant surface, and I'll look at like all of the orange areas, all of the red areas. Like I'm looking at everything all at once. So I use my eyes in a way that feels comfortable to me. It's why I made my artwork be this way. Why am I not a professional reader? Why am I not a professional writer? Because both of those things don't feel comfortable to me. And but if it feels comfortable to you and works for your brain and your neurology, then do it. Because I would also say, like, that might be on your central timeline, and I would not say that you have to model or use me as a template. All the way back to the very beginning. Question from Joni says, how does thymus fit in? Is it part of the throat or light blue? It is referred as high heart. Some people can see the heart chakras of others as appearing blue rather than green. Okay, so the thymus is actually high heart, affiliated more with the green over here. And this light blue is more your endocrine and metabolic rate, your thyroid. So I know these are two different glands. The truth is that each of the chakras is associated with or affiliated with a gland. The gland is a non-direct analog. So in your blue, dark blue, it's your pineal gland. It's intimately connected to dark blue, but not synonymous with. You also have violet, which I think is connected to the pituitary, which is also, we'll just call it in there somewhere. We already got thyroid, thymus, and then of course you have all of your hormonal structures, reproductive organs are all glands that are where your red, orange chakras meet. So these are part of comprehension, but there's just not like I say, like a direct analog. Okay, good. All right. And let me just make sure I get to all the different questions. Good. Fantastic. Okay. So what you're actually doing with your DNA is building a house of reality. Reading for here, so I have to read that. Okay, so your DNA is like a potential. You think of it as the potential for your brown eyes, for your brown hair, but it's also a potential for experienced events in reality. And being able to open up the pages and read those events is necessary for your body to then create the edifices of those structures and then walk with your physical body into the edifices that you create. And flying rainbow lasagna reshapes DNA so that you can access your higher faculties and your talk about your cells and what is happening with your cells. So in each moment right now, you are manufacturing your body of the future. All of the cells of right now are going to create their offshoots and copies that you will jump into as consciousness in some moment of what is currently perceived as your future. The dance of your DNA is what propels you from moment to moment, separated from the Planck length, to be able to go into those edifices and structures. And your so many different directions I wanted to go into there. Okay. During a large portion of your cell's life, the DNA is unfurled and can be accessed. During the time when it is getting prepared for replication, that is when it's in its supercoiled aspect. When the DNA is in its supercoiled aspect, it is not static. It is similarly able to move, but it must move within the correct parameters. Can't just move in random directions. The DNA has to move like a Rubik's Cube in the right way. And so some of the things that you can imagine, and I'll go more into this, I think, in lesson 13. When your DNA is supercoiled, it's like a bunch of stacked up donuts, or like a slinky, where you have, like a rounded slinky, and you can fly rainbow lasagna in this direction, kind of like mixing together one slice of this reality and one slice of this reality, and then a little bit of this reality, and then back to this reality. In each of these slices of the spring or moments separated at the Planck length, there are some things that you like and some things that you don't like. And the ultimate in becoming a multidimensional flying rainbow lasagna human is to take parts of this reality that I like and then connect them to the parts that I like here and the parts that I like here and energize all of that like a chord when I play things with my hand, touching multiple notes at once on my piano. You can also do something similar where you de-energize multiple aspects of your DNA at once so that that way those potentials are not expressed. They can be potentials for disease, like a horrible disease like cancer or diabetes. They're like, I don't want that, I don't want that, and I don't want that. So we're going to turn down the volume on those things. But it also can be for events. That could be like, I don't want a car accident, I don't want to get eaten by lions, and I don't want to have a comet fall on top of my head. And I turn down the volume on any of those things. So, when I talk about ancient concurrent Atlantis, in that world, because we had such a good ascension success rate, it wasn't so much of concerted effort to be like reflecting away, like don't go onto the peripheral timelines, because none of us went onto the peripheral timelines. In that level of reality, you're all such good musicians that we all stay on the correct pathway and stay alive. So it's so much easier when you see so many examples of success. We had 0 examples of death, and we had 100% examples of success in reaching the culmination of why you are in time. This world is the complete opposite, where you have cautionary tales galore. You're like, don't be like that guy. Don't be like that guy. Don't be like that one or like that one. And very, very few examples of those who transcended. So, of course, we love the historical Jesus and any of these non-brand name masters who ascended, meaning that they honed their existence to the essence of who they were and then went through that portal. You will encounter them. You'll encounter them as the perfect version of yourself that has similarly been cultivated and refined to being able to go through that portal. But once you go through that doorway, it is not the end of your journey where you then float in abstract bliss and be like, my job is done. I have nothing left to learn at all and no effort. The answer is no. Then you find yourself in the next vista where all of these things can happen. And you're like, now I have to start from the beginning again, and I have to learn and define who I am and who I'm not as I move through this new context. And that's the next octave or next shell or level of reality. And when you go into that level of reality, you have some things that are transferable life skills, things that came to you from this level that you are presently mastering. And those are things that you've learned and internalized. And then when you go into the next level of reality, you'll use those muscles or those patterns or those behavioralisms and apply it to your next level of existence. Unfortunately, a lot of the things that you're internalizing here in this layer of reality are not transferable life skills. They are achieved under such levels of distortion that it's like my hilarious anecdotes about the first frame shop that I ever worked in that was 3/16 of an inch off on one axis, 1/8 of an inch off on another axis, and then whatever, like 1 millimeter off on the other axis. And then as long as you just can keep all of those complex measurements and compensations going, you can do things just perfect. This is most of you and mostly what you are experiencing here in this extremely non-pristine system and flawed reality. And yeah, good. Becca says, will the next octave be in a different star system? That's a beautiful question. My answer is no. But also, for some people, the answer might be yes, if you go to a different star system. So for you, you might go to a different star system. Also, like I know that I have more to do on my gig here in this star system, sorry, I have a fly in here. I also am still doing a lot of the work that I do on the stellar network, which is kind of like across multiple star systems. So it's a complex answer, but let's say this. For some people, you will not stay, but you will remain affiliated with Earth, but this plan will be completely redefined, and consciousness and our experience of being here will be completely redefined. And you'll still be a part of this solar system and also this galaxy or this star system. But some of you will make a choice or feel that you are better aligned in a different layer of reality or in a different place, and you will happily go to that other place. Then there are some people who aren't in this class who are like very bad people and have not enough quarters in the video game of life to like ever get it together. Even if I gave them a bag, like, here, keep trying, kid, they're never going to get the high score on the video game. And instead of considering that they're going to go to some like trash heap of a solar system where they're just going to go and like be the screw ups, let's go over there for the screw ups to inhabit that world. Far from that, they're going to go to entropy, which is very different than what has happened in the past as we have transited through these various different layers and gone on different journeys of learning and self-cultivation. Because some people are like, oh yeah, like it used to be this great, and then everybody like, you know, fell and fell and fell, and people think like, oh yeah, like consciousness got degraded and then you're just going to keep on being degraded. I'm like, no, this is actually the lowest level of the consciousness staircase that you can be at, kid. So please don't think that like, oh, if you don't do a good job here, then you're going to get demoted and like go down to a sub basement. Like, you're in the basement. It's as bad as it gets. There's no place worse to go from here, even though people are like, wait, what about some kind of like lake of fire, hellish, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm telling you, like, this is as bad as it gets. Yeah, no. And it's part of also why I exist and why I've created Flying Rainbow Lasagna. What you want is to have the residues and non-viable reality structures go into a restful state, not for them to continue to have some amount of vivification or energy that makes them keep on being like a song that is going, or some gyration that continues on forward. What you really want to do is be like, oh, we've had enough of that bad music. Stop playing your instrument and just go into a restful state. And that's the ultimate. So please know, because I'll emphasize this and then kind of wrap it all up. We'll go into a restful state after class. Okay? In a pristine system, like let's say Atlantis, nobody ever hits the membrane of death, everybody ascends. This right now is not a pristine system. And also, if you just kind of bumped along without massive effort, you might not ascend. Might not get to this thing here. You can't just be like, I'm just going to play every wrong note on my keyboard of life, and eventually I will play the right notes. That is not an effective strategy for getting through your reality structure. So you have to start getting more efficient and be like, no, I'm going to jump over. I don't need to learn those lessons. I want to call them BS. Those crapola lessons. I don't need to learn those crapola lessons. Literally, some lessons are misadventures, not real lessons, where you really didn't have anything to learn, but they are just discomforts to be endured. And let me grab my amazing, where's my crystal? Like, I joke about this being like my diamond, darling, wave my diamonds at you, darling. That lady that I knew that had a lot of diamonds, you know, and a diamond attitude. Let's imagine that this is like your inner guidance. You have tiny crystals in your mind, but let's imagine you have this big, giant, honking pineal gland up here, and it shows you what is going on. Like, you literally can see down the road of life because you have this, and you're able to anticipate what is coming. And when you have this well calibrated and functional, really is like a treasure, a real diamond, because it means you can jump over bull crapola and avoid it. All right. You must follow your intuition, and you must have the acceptance at the level of your unconditional love heart in order to leapfrog and jump over non-viable irrelevancies. So when energy or information or insights come to you, accept them and believe them the first time. And that can be something like this. My intuition told me I shouldn't have gotten in the car that day. Or my intuition told me I shouldn't have eaten that thing. Or my intuition told me I shouldn't have talked to that person or had anything to do with them. And then if you listen to your intuition, you would have avoided either, like, you know, a deadly car accident or food poisoning or some toxic relationship. At a certain point, you get good at being able to kind of like anticipate, like, oh, that it's toxic relationship coming. Like you can tell that person right there. Stay away from that person. But the key point is when the insight comes to you up here, you have to accept it. You can't just be rationalizing and pretending. So although it can be very difficult to live your life at these standards, because there can be social pressure to conform or to accept bad behavior or to celebrate mediocrity or crappiness. Or sometimes people will just say, like, what's the matter you? Why are you making these crazy assertions? And it's not always something that you can articulate or rationalize. To be like, sorry, my mind crystal told me I couldn't talk to that person, or I didn't want to do business with them, or I didn't want to have them in my life. And some people will be like, that's crazy. And you're not allowed to be that way. And you'd be like, you do you, girl, I'll do me. But truly, as you start to navigate the time field with an activated higher faculty, not only do you learn, like you're walking around in literally an encyclopedia of knowledge and cosmic significance. Every bird is like, that's a deep inner message. And every leaf on the tree, like another deep inner message. The world is pregnant with meaning. And then also when you interact with other either organisms or people, you will have to be very selective. And when we're in that state, that pristine state, then social conventions fall by the wayside. And you can't be like, I'm personally insulted that you didn't want to talk to me. I would be like, I'm happy that it was not on your path to talk to me and you did something else instead, because that's what your mind crystal made you do that. Look at how different that is than this world right now, where there is like the begging for attention, where people are like, read my book, watch my video, pay attention to me, like I'm on social media. It's like, maybe you're not supposed to be in everybody's face. Maybe the attempt to like put someone in your face is an assault on the natural behavior of your mind. And in the time of Atlantis, we have a very different social dynamic where there's no in your face. There's just naturally circulating like of the people that you would like to interact with. So you don't have to do like this heavy self-marketing, which was never that comfortable to me. Of course, I do this as an artist because I have to promote myself here so that people will find out about me. Otherwise, no one would know about anything and I would like die in obscurity. No, so I've had to learn the fine art of self-promotion here. But in the world that I'm familiar with, we don't have to do ego self-promotion because you naturally circulate to the people who appreciate and love and celebrate you. And because it's like their eyes are moving in figure eights and their eyes, I made crazy eyes just then, but their eyes naturally fall upon you. And they're like, oh, look at you, your artwork, you're the most beautiful person I've ever met in my whole entire life. Like, I'm so happy that I found you. And that's the flow and the celebration. And so there's much less competition or the need for competition because you're like, oh yeah, I had exactly the right number of people that looked at this painting or listened to this song that I made, because that's where the flow of their attention flowed to me. And then it's time for them to listen to someone else's music. Much less personal investment and much less of a story of like, am I a good person? Nobody listened to me today. Like 0 people looked at me today. I must be a bad person or irrelevant or worthless in some way, which is how most people in their ego are like right now in social media. So from the description that I give to you, the world that I'm familiar with is a place like you would consider it. People's egos are healthy. And in this world, the kindest thing I could say is people's egos are very unhealed. And they also, some people would like to have all of the attention. Someone in this class is smart. You're like, oh, you mean like narcissists? I'm like, yeah. So there are some people who are just like black holes of requirements. They're like endless requirements, pay attention to me. Narcissist, and they're not prepared to share the spotlight or to share attention at all. And that is also not healthy because you got to be in your healed ego, in your healthy state. You're like, oh, I get attention and you get attention too. And everybody gets attention. Even though I want you to know my little dog is so cute. She's sleeping over there. She is a very healthy ego, but she wants all the attention. She's like, no, don't pay attention to that over there. Like, here's, I'll tell you some fun anecdotes. Years ago, I lived in a shared house and I didn't have a cat, but there were 4 roommates and there was a cat that lived there. And I'm like, whose cat is this? They're like, it used to be the landlord's. Nobody takes care of it anymore. And it wasn't really getting loved and affection. So I'm like, okay, we're going to rehome this cat. So I'm trying to take a photo of the cat to put it up on a website to get fostered. And my dog kept on being like, don't pay attention to that cat. I kept on going in between. Here's the camera. Here's the cat. And getting in, like, pay attention to me. Pay attention to me. Take a picture of me. And I'm like, that is beautiful. You know, it's like my dog didn't want me to be cheating on her with the cat. And I'm like, it's just for the professional. Totally just to rehome this cat. Don't take it personally. But I think that is like adorable and positive. And she's like me, like I'm cute. Don't pay attention to that silly old cat over there. Which is, you know, like this is the cutest way that we can comprehend this. Like someone that's just like, no other cuteness, me cuteness, me cuteness. And that's how she is. So I think she is in her positive ascension version of herself. But I think that we maybe need to be more attentive to our human requirements. Can't always expect to be the person having their photo taken. And sometimes someone else might need to get some attention. And so, yeah, but I love and accept who my dog is. And that's why I don't have a cat, because I think there would be jealousy issues. Okay, beautiful. All right, good. Any more questions or comments? I think definitely like my voice is tired and I feel like I got through almost everything that's important. One of the final things as I'm talking about building a structure. So like you make choices about your life and the choices that you make help to build the structure of what you're creating in time. And then I talked about this last week, like building your bark, your raft of consciousness. Don't think about it as something that's like for your death or your death day to then go off on your grand adventure. But think of this as something that is the defining template of your existence. And at a certain point, it is going to be subject to giant cosmic forces, like forces of time. And the question is whether your structure of time that you built can withstand the impactful forces of the cosmos. So the impactful forces of the cosmos, some of those are these circulatory forces that go along the membrane of death. Like if you're here on the membrane of death, you're going to get blasted with tons of frequencies of love that flush the toilet. They clean that stuff out, or they clear out the sewer, like you're not supposed to be there. But if you are in the right alignment, like with the fire hose of truth, it comes at you like the solar wind. And then if you're structured correctly, everything sticks together and your bicycle wheels just go faster and you actually accelerate and you get into an even more refined, higher state. But if you've created time edifices or constructed yourself inexpertly, as you are subjected to these larger, impactful forces of the cosmos, it breaks you apart. And these can be illogics, emotional illogics, inconsistencies, and hypocrisies, where you're in conflict. I'm this, but I'm this. And some people think that that is what it is to be human. They're like, like I'm in conflict. They're like, I want to be thin, but I want to eat a lot of chocolate. That's life. And I'm like, I don't agree with that at all. Because I'm like, oh, like, then what you do is you eat a sensible amount of chocolate and then you also like exercise and do the right thing. So I don't think that's the definition of what it is to be human, is to be in these levels of mediocrity or self-conflict. Like people define what it is to be human as to be in error. Like I'm only human. Like what am I going to do? And, like this is as good as it gets, kid. And I don't agree to that. I really do think that there is a divine perfection that you can achieve while you are in your physical body. And that's essential for you to do so. But I also think that divine perfection cannot be defined by someone else outside of you according to their standards or according to a one-size-fits-all cultural paradigm of larger cultural standards. You have to carve for yourself your own standards and then arise to them and embody them. And I'll also say this is to the people that are in this class. You will really do your own self-assessment. You think that I tell you, I mean, it's truthful. Like you will get to the membrane of death or some form of assessment where it's like someone has a clipboard. But I think that for you, it's important to comprehend. The assessment is really a self-assessment, and there's not a way for you to lie, to look at the mirror and be like, does this make me look bad? Like, no, you look fine. Keep going, kid. Like you're ascended. I'm chomping my cigar. Get up there. You're ascended. You have to feel totally celebratory about who you are and what you've done. There's not a way to be like, well, I really hate my life masterpiece. Totally ashamed of that, and that. That's just the way it is. I guess I'll just keep going on. Like, you have to celebrate everything that you've been through and everything that you've become. And if you don't feel that self-celebratory, then it means you're still a work in progress. And it's very, very fair to say that about who you are. And look at where you are. Like you're here to improve and you're here to learn and grow. You can also ask me this. Why am I here? Because I know that I have already ascended at the time of Atlantis, and that's how I am also on the stellar network. And the answer is, I had something to learn on both an ego level and a physical level in being here as Aurora, flying rainbow lasagna, in a non-pristine system alongside of all of you guys. If it were possible for me to bypass this situation, like I really need to learn all that stuff, I would have been like, I don't need to learn how to like embroider a dress or make a website. These are not transferable life skills. I will not have to do that in the next octave. But I did have to learn, how do I articulate this truth of flying rainbow lasagna to the people of this time and place? And so in order to do that, I had to learn how to, articulate and express myself with words, how to use art supplies, how to have a website, how to do commerce, how to do all these things for the purposes of teaching flying rainbow lasagna. That's my ego thing. I'm like, you know what? I need to teach these guys about flying rainbow lasagna. I fully admit I would not have been okay if I just had the original flying rainbow lasagna idea, and then someone else came into your world and whatever, made the sculptures or like made a video and then told you all about it. I would have been like eating my heart out in the higher dimension, be like, that should have been me. I could have been a contender, that should have been me. So like, I did it. I didn't have someone else do it. I did it. I jumped down here in order to do that. And I'm totally at peace with that. So you might wonder in your own life, like, why are you here? You go through existentialism like Bill Murray in the movie, and you're like, why the F am I here? Like, to eat cupcakes? What am I doing here? I'm like, I have a very clear mission. I'm like, I know why I'm here, because I got to make sculptures about flying rainbow lasagna and somehow get through to these people down here. So yeah, in that way, like I celebrate and my life is easy because I have very, very clear parameters. And then also I have to joke, I'll also grab my really old sculpture here. This is good. I'm so sweaty. Sorry, guys. It's very hot out. This was my original lasagna sculpture that I made. And I always tell you, like, I made it in the oven. Like, you could see the little ridges. It was cooked in the oven. And when it came out of the oven, like, I literally thought that this was the completion of my mission. I was like, I made the flying rainbow lasagna. And it came out of the oven. And it's like, dun, dun, it came out of the oven. And then I just showed it to someone, like, standing on the sidewalk. I'm like, I didn't even say anything. And they just looked at me like, well, get out of here, freak. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, did I fulfill my mission? Like, did I do it? And I'm like, guess not. I guess not. Back to the drawing board. And then that's me literally going back to my drawing board and being like, okay, how do I get them to comprehend what this is? And then, my life going forward, fast forward to now, trying to get these concepts across. So please know that it's like, what originally motivated me to come into this level of reality and seemed like very reductionist and facile goal. I'm like, this has actually taken me like 25 years to try to do it, and I'm still trying. So things aren't always that easy. Jody says, in Atlantis, were there many couples who chose to ascend together? It seems like it would be difficult. Our whole entire way of doing reproduction and making new people in that level of reality is really different than how people do coupling and partnership and making babies here. There were very committed, loving relationships or deep, profound friendships. But people did not ascend in a team or in a pair or a duo. Everybody ascended as an individual. And ascension at that time in our soul experience was like a spiritual athlete, the same way that you currently have the Olympics. And those are the people that have the most perfect bodies. And it's their job to train and to do the most that they can. And then when you watch them, you're like, you know something? One day, like, I wish I could do that one day. But like, that girl's been doing acrobatic flips since she was 6 years old and has, this many efforts to be able to get to be there. You watch and you're like, I celebrate that person. They're exploring their potential. I wish I could be like that one day. That is what our experience was like when we ascended. Literally, you watch it happening on a giant mountain. You don't have television. You have your own you have telepathic vision. Good. And then you watch what's happening in this spiritual attainment. And then it can take like whatever, 5 years. It could take a long time. And the person would go through all of their life experiences. So like, if you're watching someone do acrobatics and it takes 5 minutes, what you watch on the ascension is this person working through all of their emotional processes and re-encountering people. And yes, it is kind of like a soap opera where you're like, oh, like that person is like meeting their lover from 20 years ago, or that person is meeting their artistic partner, and they're meeting this and this and this. Like, you watch when they go through all of their processing, but you learn and you grow, just like watching someone doing a bunch of flips. So there was not really the sense of a tandem, two people ascending at once. Very, very rare. It was usually like spotlight on one person, and you would watch and learn from their whole growth and evolution. And then, of course, if they had like a special lover or a relationship, and then that person was going to ascend, you might also watch that person ascend, and it would happen separately. And you would learn as the audience member from both of these people. And then you might still have 500 years before you ascend. But when you go through your process, you have internalized the people that you admired, you watched them, and it becomes a part of your own journey. But those people have already ascended. So they're already in what is called the floating city level. You're not going to re-encounter them, but you will encounter other people. So yes, I hope that answered your question. When you are watching your loved ones ascend in Atlantis, you are not bracing yourself for grief and loss. In that level of reality, we do not have grief and loss, because even after you ascend, like you make it through the perambulation over many, many years, and you're up here at the top, which is exactly like getting to the top of my time vortex. It's a direct analogy. And then what happens is you don't come back down. Like you're kind of like not even really with your feet on the ground. You're just hovering. You're just hovering. And then you can whisk away the mountain and you can still be there hovering. But what happens is you end up joining your community of other people who have become so buoyant that they also can hover. And that is this whole floating community. Everybody who lives on the ground can see the floating community. So it's not like you're like, oh, like I watched you in your ascension process, and then you went up the mountain and then you went away forever, and I felt sad and I didn't see you anymore. Everybody is like, oh yeah, like that's my friend Harry, and he went up the mountain and then he ascended, and I still see Harry right there every day. And I see him dancing, and I know that he's having an impact on my life by the dance that he's doing there. So completely different celebration, like really celebrating that people can become their greatest level of self. And then you're not going to wish for them to be back with you. You're not going to think, oh, I really miss Harry, and I wish that he was down here with me, doing something on the ground, because you know that they are genuinely in this leveling up, exalted territory, and that they've mastered everything at your level. And that's why they're not there anymore. Got it? And you guys just clicked into position. It's like, oh, like you, or like you mastered everything. I mastered everything at the level. But what I did not master is doing a flying rainbow lasagna and how to teach you guys in this garbage level of reality how to do flying rainbow lasagna. So I'm like, oh, this is what I have to do. And so this is what I'm here doing. Okay, very, very good. Fantastic. let's wrap it up because brains have been liquefied. My brain is definitely tired. All of your brains are tired. Super fantastic. I'm very pleased for that. And whenever I complete class, then I always end up with so many things. I'm like, oh, I wanted to say this and I wanted to say that. So little by little, I do bring things into closure. I don't leave all of these unspoken things unspoken. I will continue to formalize and bring things to closure as we're going through class. But there's always so much more left to be said. Thank you. And I want to read this beautiful comment. Joyce is a wonderful student and says, blessings and love, Professor Aurora. Thank you. I'd love to Miss Chiki too. Thank you so much because Joyce has been in the class for a long time. But appreciate you and thank you always for your positive presence here. Okay, everybody. So I'm really going to encourage you, keep on accessing your whiteboard homeworks because there's always so much more in there. And I take time to really draw everything out. And I do cut corners here just because it's not always that easy for me to touch technology. So take time to watch the whiteboards. I think that it's really worth it. And did I get to everything? Of course I did. And there will always be more. Okay, good. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to complete things and say thank you. Thank you for being the best of the best of people on this planet. Thank you for being the good students. You guys are genuinely trying to learn, trying to internalize, and trying to optimize your path. And then also, thank you for listening to me. I'm the type of art teacher where I only want to bring out the best artist in you. So I would only want you to be 100% your true self, follow your own inner guidance, follow your own path and your own dictates, and play the music of your life in the way that you know it is supposed to be. All right. That's the best of what I can give to you. So total celebration and recognition for each one of you. Like you're good. And you're learning and continue to learn. And please keep on trusting in yourself because you've already done well up until this point. Keep on doing the right thing. I've been in drawing classes where there are teachers who are experts and they've really been honing their craft for many decades. And sometimes they're looking at someone's drawing or painting or whatever, and they're like, no, it's all wrong. It's all crap. And they grab the pencil out of their hand and they're like, no, don't do it like that. You have to draw like this, like this, like this. And they give them the pencil back and like, do better. I'm like, I am not like that. I am not that type of a teacher. I'm like, no, like this is your pencil. This is your tendril of awareness. This is your body. This is your DNA. Please make something beautiful with it, but I'm not going to tear your tools out of your hand and draw on top of your life experience. No, I would really want to encourage you to make your best choices and optimize your path, but I would not take away your freedom, try to take over from you. Okay, so keep going on making good things, okay? Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for being in the class.